step. I'm a mad dad when I come down straight. I thought you were my beast, but you played me out. Now I'm mad as hell, and I'm full of doubt. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty, let's roll. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty, let's roll.
Wow. That was pretty good, Jim.
Yes, it was.
It's time to get mean, I'm a lean mean. Revolution must get let's go. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty. Let's roll.
What was that? That wasn't even like a roll. That was like a raw.
That was a man's roll.
Who you want to roar with? Who you want to roar with?
Who you wanna roll
That's
with?
what it was.
Who you wanna roll with? Lefty.
That's great.
Let's roll. Let's roll. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty. Let's roll.
Wow. Wow.
Lefty, that's who.
Jim's highly medicated. I'm about to get medicated. Welcome to the show. In the home stretch. Magical butter makes your recipes better. Magical butter makes your recipes better. Canasense got busted. I don't know what for. We'll try to get Neil on the phone.
Explain to our vast audience who Neil is and why you want him on the phone.
Neil Schloss is the one of the guys from Canasense. And we talk about them all the time because they help people get their cannabis cards from California here in New Jersey and all over the U.S. And they're legit. But apparently law enforcement has caught up with some of their storage areas or something happened and now they're busted. I don't know what's going on. We want to get Neil and...
Well, then he should
find out what's
fill us in.
Yeah, what's going on? More patients losing their medicine.
And Neil was on the show how long ago?
A couple times last year. I think he was on the show when Christie walked by.
Ah,
Yeah.
lucky man.
Lucky guy.
Was it a good Christie flyby or
No.
not?
No, it was one of the bad ones. There's only one good one, I think.
A couple were okay.
A couple. Ed Fortune's sitting in jail. His trial is going on right now.
Well, he's actually out of jail in the Mercer County Courthouse.
Well, he's still in chains.
Not during the trial.
What they do is they unchain him during the jury. When the jury's in there, he's unchained. As soon as the jury leaves the room, they run over to him and chain him up real quick.
Is that what they do?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't really watching that closely.
Those things you don't see unless you're there.
Yeah, well, I was there.
And, you have to watch closely.
I did not notice. Actually, when it was time for a break, I was kind of going out the door.
Out the door. Yeah. While you're going for your break, they're chaining him up so he can't even move. He's moving like this. He's reaching for pens, and he can't even move his arm. He's like, really? Really? And that's only for black people.
You know what? I thought he did really. I didn't see the after lunch. The morning, I thought the prosecution did a great job in Ed's favor, it seemed, and obviously they've got to be circling around to something. But what I got out of it was that there didn't seem to be much argument about the confidential informant being a pill pushing forger.
Rat.
Convicted.
Fink.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of words
well,
he used.
that's, yeah.
He had a billboard of words.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't good. Yeah. Ed looked really good. The prosecution looked very bad.
Yeah, and I'm not real clear. It seems that there was some contention with opening motions that Ed didn't want them cherry-picking Facebook remarks because it could have been from any, it doesn't matter if it's his friend or somebody he knows, it shouldn't be allowed, But I hear her reading Facebook remarks, but they all seem to, I'm watching the jury's faces, and, I think they were sort of taken by the fact there's no argument as to the, whether or not his informant was a nice guy or not.
Yeah,
that's not going to be their issue.
No, he's a bum.
But he already got that out. I mean, they already made that case. So there's just so much at stake. And
what I appreciated was that Ed said he's very nervous, and he said he wished he had a bong rip before he did this opening statement, and 5 jurors laughed. 5, I counted. Mostly women, too. So he's got 5 jurors on his side already from the door.
Well, it's going to get into the nuts and bolts. Oddly enough, this isn't really about cannabis right now. I mean, it is because that's why he's there ultimately. But it was the case concerning cannabis that the confidential informant was involved in. So then he went after him to expose him, make him less confidential. It just seemed, well, it was nice to be able to watch the judge's face and this profile of the prosecutor, Katz, when they were reading for the court and the judge Ed's statement. Well, Katz is going to go for an injunction for me making this public, so I'm going to do it now before the judge gets it. I would have not obeyed it anyway, but this way, Yeah. And then F her or something, So basically, their investigator, their lead investigator, detective, was reading that. And I know it was the only time I heard a chortle from the crowd was his brother chortling when they read what it said, and he's right there. It's almost like he said it himself, The judge doesn't offend me, does the way he's conducting the case at all. How do you feel about that?
Well, they all smile while they victimize you, so I like at least how he smiles, and he looks like a happy guy.
It doesn't seem like he's just giving in to the prosecution as much as I've seen in past cases, where I think Ed, he got something in his favor. I didn't see it there. I didn't get there till after they'd done that 2 days ago.
Maybe that's what you've seen, but from what I've seen so far, the judge and the prosecution are just throwing everything at the wall.
Yeah, well, that's what they do.
And they are, the judge must have told the guards not to let us do anything because they are very restrictive on our recordings. They're saying we can't record the bailiff, we can't record the judge, which is not in the guidelines for, the Supreme Court guidelines for filming.
Yeah.
So they're very restrictive in this case, specifically.
I was surprised you're allowed to video at all. I didn't know we'd finally progressed to that point where that was even allowed. All the art. Well, actually, the artist sketches were almost always of the jury, as it was, but they would also have to sketch the defendant's face, and stuff like that. So you were able to record the opening statement.
Yeah. Would you like to hear the opening statement from Ed Fortune? It's really good.
How long is it?
Oh. 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
I'd love to hear it. I'm going to go over by my car while you play.
I'm going to join you, actually.
Because I want to see what it sounds like from the roadway.
Yeah, me too. Sound check.
Dan, you want to hold the fort here? Just don't turn any mics on because they're going to be turned down.
So hopefully we'll have Patrick Duff in studio or on the phone to talk to us about what's going on with Ed's Fortune's case. James Babb, we're trying to get him on the phone too. He's been there. He's a brilliant guy. He's really upset about this whole thing.
Yeah.
He's comparing this whole thing to slavery and slave masters, the way they're treating him, and he makes a lot of sense when he talks about, you're sitting in pews, just like church. You notice that, right? It's very authoritarian.
My ass noticed it right away. Yeah.
It's like you want something, you go to the guy on the pedestal over there, in the big black robe. You want something. It's this whole authoritarian system where it's control. Like when they chain him up, when the jury leaves, they chain him up real quick. It's like that's control. Yeah. They're not scared of Ed. That's control.
No, it's procedure though. I mean,
no, they don't do that for everybody. They don't. They only do that for the black people.
Really? I'd have to know more about
Dan,
that.
Hold on. You're talking with your mouth full off mic. Talk with your mouth full in mic now. Go ahead. Right here. No, talk. Yeah, do it. Do it. I want to hear you. What'd you say?
They should chain him back up again much more slowly.
Slowly?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we have a problem with them doing it quickly, right?
We have a problem with them chaining up a black man at all.
Oh.
How would you like to be chained up? You wouldn't like it, would you?
It's a serious offense.
It's bad. It's bad. And when he's chaining up a whole bunch of black people, it looks like slavery all over again. And that's what we have down in Trenton here. Slavery all over again.
Well, to be fair, it does seem like if he's going to be chained and, if the bailiff or sheriff's officers were not facing the camera, you ought to be able to rip off a picture of that. But you're not.
Remember too that George Washington had slaves, and he.
Yeah, I know. And Thomas
so the whole country is based on racism, right?
Yeah.
If George Washington was.
So why are we continuing that by chaining up Ed Fortune and making him suffer? We shouldn't continue this tradition of ours, this Americana tradition of racism and slavery.
We should take down George Washington's statues.
Are you really sure they don't do that for other people?
I've heard it was shocking. James Babb said it was shocking to see that.
Yeah, I know, but that's hearsay.
Okay, well, I said it was shocking too.
I'm just taking an opposite point of view
I
because
agree.
it's a good way to look at things, 360.
Yes, I know.
And I find a lot of times it's just standard procedure that they have to follow, and it doesn't make sense, and it's not. They put their hand on your head, sitting you down on a patrol car because it's standard procedure, not because they care whether you bump your head or not. They're bound to go by it. And it's not surprising, not really. I care more about is the jury going to be able to hear a good version of how this played out for Ed? Are they going to be able to see the videos? They're not, are they? The videos that he had of them.
Only clips of the videos.
Who decides what clips? Is there a pool of clips that they both, prosecution and...
Yeah, the judge decided. He already said just clips.
I'd like to hear the reasoning on that.
Yeah, so they're not helping Ed, really, at all.
Well, they're not going to help him.
Everything they're doing is to hurt him and put him in jail, back in chains.
He could be out in time for the election. Right?
Maybe. You won't if you put another cup of coffee on that table.
Oh God, no!
Okay.
That's it. You're done.
No, I mean, I want to. Come on. We're cannabis podcast, not coffee and donuts. Don't spill them. Shit, it's podcast number 96, by the way.
Very good.
I think that was probably one of the best intros. That was fun.
Bunch of kids walking by.
Yeah.
Being educated.
As to that you have the right to come out and do that.
Okay.
One day they'll grow up and think they saw something like that when they were little. And
okay, so you want to go to the car? We'll play Ed Fortune's opening statement.
If you're gonna play it.
Yeah, because I need to go medicate myself, actually, and do a few things. I need about 15 minutes myself.
Can I go with you? I might say something wrong.
No. Actually, I was... Well, yeah, but on the other hand, if you turned his mic down low and just every maybe 2 minutes or so said, you're listening to Ed Fortune's opening statement on Wisconsin Court yesterday.
Okay.
No.
No. Nah, I just wanted to see if you'd do it.
He testing me?
No, him. He fell for it.
Why are you testing me? Okay, so here is, in its entirety, Ed Fortune's opening statement from Trenton yesterday.
Marks County Court.
She's facing Stephanie Katz and Prosecutor Boyle. And they couldn't get their videos to work, so nothing was working for these guys yesterday. They were a mess.
Yeah.
And Ed Fortune came out with his little Rasta hat on, his suit. He looked real
good.
sharp,
He looked good.
right?
Different jacket.
Looked good. He was in control. The jury was eating out of his hands, man.
I wonder if he has
Great.
a progression of jackets he plans to wear. The first one was not as cool as yesterday. Was looking sharper than the first day.
He's gonna.
I'm thinking he's got like a purplish sort of one. You know what I mean?
Red one, purple.
Red one, no, not the red. It's not overly flash. I think he was in that in a picture with his previous lawyer outside court.
Yeah.
The heavy set. You know. That's a sharp-looking suit, man.
And Hepburn was there actually.
Yeah, I saw him.
Did he talk to you?
No, he said something to you real quick, didn't he?
Yeah.
About the camera going in. We were all getting ready to go in.
He was trying to be helpful to me actually.
I know.
I was wondering why, because he's having problems with.
Yeah, I know. Billy Huff was telling me about that. But again, I'm hearing it. No offense to you or anybody else, but when I hear somebody say things, I always have to, not qualify it, but.
Well, he's the reason why Ed did 60 extra days, because of him.
Yeah. Well, indirectly because he was the lawyer that then Ed did not have, and because he changed lawyers was the prosecutor or the system's
Excluded time.
reason to start the clock all over for the 180-day max.
And from
But he didn't say I'm going to quit being your lawyer, so it'll set the clock back. I mean, he didn't. That was a result of this man being Ed's lawyer, but he didn't do it. He did not.
We don't know that, and
No.
we also say that.
Well, that's true. We don't.
He's also saying that he sent Ed down a bad path. He gave him bad legal advice, sent him down a path that made him do something illegal, which was to contact this guy's family.
Yeah.
That was bad legal advice, apparently.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. Allegedly, that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Doctor, a lawyer.
What?
A lawyer recommended that he contact the.
Yeah, I think the lawyer said it was.
That's the contention.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, because he doesn't have to be in.
Allegedly.
Curly missed it, man.
Is he the accuser or is the state the accuser? Will he have to appear in court?
Oh, there will be a lot of lawsuits going back and forth with this one. Yes, Ed's going to be involved. Ed Hayburn is going to be involved in quite a few lawsuits, back and forth. But that's what he does. He gets sued. He sues. He plays both sides. He's a defense attorney on one day. He's a prosecuting a witness on another day.
Let's hear what Ed has to say about that.
All right. Ed's got a lot
crank
to
it
say.
up.
All right, you ready? Here we go.
I'm going to cross my fingers. I hope he sells.
He will. He's going to win.
Okay.
Listen to this guy. He's good.
Mike's down.
Okay.
He'll.
Directed at a witness and directed and touching.
Sorry, that's the prosecutor's opening statement. We don't want Ed Fortune's opening statement. We don't want the prosecutor. All right, here we go. Sorry, Jim.
Now, unfortunately, though, am I correct? The viewing audience can't see the video of this.
No, cannot.
Okay.
He does have a billboard up with some paperwork that says "Internet case is bull crap."
You got good video.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good sound.
Where would people go to see this video?
YouTube, Sativa Cross. Go to my page on Sativa Cross, or just Google Ed Fortune's opening statement.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
there.
if you Google that, will they get the video?
Yeah, you get the video on Sativa Cross.
Yeah.
The Sativa Cross page. Here it is, guys and girls.
Good morning. I've waited 8 months. Finally get to say my side of this. I will admit I'm nervous. I might stutter a little bit. I'm not a lawyer. I'll do the best I can. I want you to factor that in. I picked you people because you look like my peers. I felt that you could put yourself in my position. Everything I wrote, everything I said in the last month or two was prepared for this day. Now I'm here, not saying I'm not going to say it, I did change a little bit listening to Mr. Williams' presentation. The statute I'm charged with violating, witness tampering. And it specifically says, I knowingly engaged in conduct that would cause a witness or informant to, and then it lists 4 things. Testify falsely, you will hear testimony, you will hear comments, the statements in the video. There's numerous videos. In each one of these videos, I'm asking for the witness to come testify. So if you ask me, number 1 is out the door. Never do I ask the witness to testify falsely or not to testify. Never. The exact opposite. And you will see testimony saying that. You will see documents. Let's talk about documents. I'm sure you'll introduce those documents. So when you introduce those documents, you read those documents. And each one of those documents, I'm saying the exact opposite of this law. And you have to also remember, at the time I was doing this, I wasn't thinking about this law. You have to remember, put yourself in my position at the time. It's easy for the state now to go back and say, this is why you did it. That's not what I was thinking at that time. Okay? To withhold testimony, never in these documents do I say anything about withholding testimony. Exact opposite. The document that Mr. Boyle just talked about are lawsuits. It comes with a summons. It specifically is asking you to come to court and answer this summons. Again, the exact opposite of what I've been charged with after the fact. To absent himself from a proceeding, again, everything that the state just said, factually, and I don't think you people will disregard facts. Factually, everything I did was the exact opposite. Serving someone with a lawsuit, number 3, to absent himself. How am I asking the person to absent himself about serving them with a lawsuit? The summons. To answer these questions and come to court. That's specifically what it's asking. I admit, I didn't know the exact address of the defendant, but through the internet, and this is an internet case. Everyone here knows you can find all kinds of things on the internet. I did find his father's house. I found his mother's house. I found his sister-in-law's house. It was because there was an obituary posted online one day. And I saw the obituary with the same last name, and I went through the last names, and I figured out the address. These are the same things lawyers and things do. When they're trying to find and serve someone, how many times have you received things in the mail, and you wonder, how did somebody find out where I live? They use the internet, and they find addresses. I didn't know where he lived, but I was able to, by that obituary, find that his father, his mother, his sister-in-law, and his mother-in-law. And the things they got sent in the mail, there was a lawsuit, information about the lawsuit. Sure, I'll admit I was a little pissed. I added a newspaper article. I did write a handwritten note on it that he was a rat. Rat is constitutionally protected. It's not a threat. Calling someone a snitch is constitutionally protected. It's not a crime to call someone a snitch. I can call anybody in here a name. Calling names is not a crime. There's articles where I called Miss Katz a name. She couldn't charge me with calling her a name. Same with this. Calling this witness a rat is not a crime. The 4th thing, to elude legal process. Again, everything I did in no way is trying to tell someone to elude the legal process. How am I telling someone to elude the legal process? If I'm serving them in a lawsuit, the things that I'm posting online are all, you'll be able to read them. They're all saying, bring this guy to court. It was part of the judicial proceeding that you have to accept, that there was a judicial proceeding. In that judicial proceeding, my allegation was that this person created this case for his own benefit to target me. And law enforcement jumped on it. Law enforcement created it. Law enforcement was going after me. And I complained about it on my Facebook. I hope everyone here has a Facebook. I understand one person said that they didn't have a Facebook, but I'm hoping the rest of you have Facebook. I'm hoping, who doesn't complain on Facebook about what happens to them? I was complaining about what was happening to me in my life at that time. There was a judicial proceeding, and there was this person who made these allegations. I filed a lawsuit against him. I called him all kinds of names. That this person, at the behest of the police and behest of law enforcement, had targeted me in what would legally be called subjective, but I called it objective.
Can we go to sideboard? Gentlemen, as I indicated to you during the trial, I will be going to sideboard. Usually I'm able to address any objections to sidebar, usually quick, okay? If there's a situation where I cannot address it quickly, based upon what I believe the appropriate rules of evidence, I will then excuse you for a short time in the hearing. But we, in accordance with the court's request, decision, you may proceed, Mr. George.
Oops. You know, I was going to get up here and dispute all kinds of things. And then I listened to Mr. Boyle's opening statement, and he kept saying, line by line, that these things that I did, that if I just did that thing, we wouldn't be here. One of the things he said, which I found potential, was about the newspaper article. The newspaper article where a reporter asked me a question and I responded to that question with this question and everything. In my indictment, that's used as the threat. Force in the second degree charge that you'll be read to at some point. He just said in his opening statement that we wouldn't be here if that's all. But I am here. If you heard it, I didn't say it. He said it. If that was all I did, then we wouldn't be here. Okay? I want you to think about that. We wouldn't be here. That's the prosecutor saying we wouldn't be here. I've been here for 8 months. Okay? I want you to remember that. This case, again, I was hoping that people understand it's an internet case. I didn't walk up to anybody and shake them up and say anything. I didn't say anything. It's an internet case. I was talking on my Facebook page. I was talking on my website. I've been on the internet since 1995. I've been complaining about law enforcement, complaining about laws, complaining about policies for over 20 years. Half the people in this courtroom know of me because I particularly do argue about other things too, if you look. I don't talk about other things, but my gimmick was to call myself an NJV man and to publicly criticize the government's marijuana policies. This case isn't about marijuana. I consider it a case about the Constitution and free speech. That's why I talk about free speech. I was actually a free speech activist before I even got on the internet. I've been talking about free speech for a long time. A couple months after I got out of the Army, I did free speech protests in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, in Glassboro. To kind of semi-quote a famous president we got here now, this is a fake case. This is fake. The state has taken my First Amendment right to free speech to talk about, complain about, express myself. It's cool. This is wondering why you're even here. Slide back over. Reasonable down. I think they're going to have to think about. I think and hope they're just going to reject the state's case. The state just rejected half of his own case. I did this, I did that, I did this, we wouldn't be here. If I just did this, if I just did that, if I just did this, we wouldn't be here. I am here. Again, I call myself First Amendment activist. I've been expressing myself for a long time. The state has misconstrued what I freely admit I said. The state's going to present evidence. I'm going to take the stand. I can't wait to take the stand. Everything the state presents, I'm going to respond to it. In my opinion, this case is about the state taking my squarely legal comments. Not one of those comments could be called illegal. I couldn't get charged with, he said this, he should be in jail for saying that. This is an illegal comment. There's no such thing as that in America. This is America. You have the right to express and publish and write on all sentiments. And remember, the state, well, I didn't show you that yet, but the states, I'll really skip to this for a second. When I was arrested, and I was oops, number 2. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I made a mistake. Again, back to where I was at. The state has misconstrued my legal statements, my freedom of speech, freedom of expression. They're squarely legal. All corners of legal parameters, what I said is legal. They've taken it and they're trying to squeeze my squarely legal statements, comments, actions into this round hole of criminality. And I say trying because that's what they're trying to do now. That's what this proceeding is about. The only way they are successful in that is if you 12 people sign off on that. And if at the end of this case you say guilty. If you 12 people say guilty, then they will have successfully put my squarely legal comments through the round hole of criminality, and I believe back the country up at least 240 years before the Constitution, back to the Peter Zenger trials. Again, as part of discovery, the state downloaded 1,500 pages of my Facebook postings. I've been posting on Facebook. I'm a prolific poster. I have my phone, I have my iPad, I have my laptop. I'm constantly Facebooking. I got hooked on Facebook, I admit it. When I got locked up, I had Facebook withdrawal. Toast. Facebook terms of service. Facebook didn't even delete the comments I made on Facebook. I hope, again, you are on Facebook. I hope that you understand Facebook. If you post things on Facebook, they take them off, they delete them, they suspend you, things like that. The state mined my Facebook. 1,500 pages. I believe the state's going to present less than 40 comments off of my Facebook page to say that this is somehow criminal. Again, same thing with my Instagram. I don't remember the exact number. I think it's around 700 pages, way more than I can look at. They gave all this stuff to me as I flipped through it. Yeah, I remember that from 2 years ago. I remember that from a year ago. They took a couple comments off of my Instagram. Again, said somehow that I was a criminal for posting these things. They mined that too. Same thing with my Twitter. I haven't seen my Twitter page since I went to jail. I can't remember my Twitter page. But I know that everything I said on Twitter is still there. I know the very first thing you see at Twitter is the things that Mr. Boyle just talked about. that newspaper article, the image, the picture of the witness. The witness posed for that picture too. I'd like to get it out. I didn't steal it off his Facebook page. He came to my place and posed for a picture. I took his picture and I used his picture. He came to sue me for that. He gave me that picture. He posed for it. The state has turned that into a crime to post it. Did I call him a rat? Yep. Did I call him a snitch? Yep. Did I call him a con man? Yep. It's all protected free speech stuff. I can call him that. I can say that. These are my opinions. I expressed it. Again, if you believe in the First Amendment, you will have to look at these things and say not guilty. Now, if you don't believe in the First Amendment, or if you don't believe the First Amendment protects me, then you will find me guilty, because I'm not denying anything. I called him a rat, I called him a snitch, I called him a con man. I want him to come to court. I'd like to say it in his face. I called him a pill pusher. I'm a pipehead, I'm a little snobby. I don't really do marijuana. I have the exact same opinion probably as most of you about pill pushers, heroin users. I called him a fraudster. I called him a liar. Again, first of all, they're true. Why can't I say a true statement? The document that the state just talked about, that purportedly, I think that was the word used, purportedly was about the witness's background. They're public documents. Public documents that I got in this building. There's an office downstairs, criminal records. There's a little computer there. And you can type anybody's name in it, and what pops up, pops up. I typed his name in, and it just popped up. They won't print it here, so I took my phone. I took pictures page after page. I did it actually with a reporter standing next to me. A reporter that I have on my witness list. At that time, again, remember, bring it back to a year ago right now. I was running for Congress too at the time. But bring it back to a year ago right now. That's when this happened. I think he used the date October 9th. October, I forget the dates he used, but it was now. It was about a year ago now. At the time, I wasn't thinking about a witness tampering case. I didn't know the state would one day take all the things I said and construe it into this illegal act and find me guilty and try to get you to find me guilty of that. That's not what, at that time, I was dealing with. Put yourself in my position. I'm Jack Haney.
For you, sir. Now, this is an instruction. During the trial, you may have what I call instructions. You are to disregard the argument that if you were in my position, if you were in my shoes, if you were me. Disregard that. That is not appropriate. But however we've addressed that issue, I don't think we'll have a problem. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oops, oops, oops. Sorry. I think someone forgot to take this one away. I was going to say, I'm into peace and love. In 20-something years I've been public, my entire adult life, I have no violence. I'm a peace and love guy. Come into my business, first thing you see me, you come in, big sign, peace and love. I'll admit I'm a black hippie type guy. I'll tell you right now, I wish I had a bomb. That's what I wish I had right now. I would have done this a whole lot smoother had I smoked a bomb this morning, took a bomb with me. Technically, is it illegal? Yeah. But New Jersey's passed this medical marijuana law. That's the end. 8 months I've been facing these charges. I'm happy that I finally got to express my opening statement about those charges. During this case, you will see the state presenting evidence, and I will take a stand and give my side of each one of these things. I'm glad I'm not here in the orange suit right now. You know, the prosecutor told me yesterday she would like me to stay in one.
Objection. Sustained. Disregard the statement that was made. Disregard that. Also, disregard that. You can continue.
With that, I'm just going to end it. Like I said, I had a lot to say. I'm a little nervous. Didn't get the phone with this morning. The things I would say would probably cause more people to complain about the things I had to say. I wouldn't be allowed to say. So I'm not going to say anything else. I hope at the end of this case, you send me home, not in orange. Thank you.
Yeah, send Ed Fortune home and get him out of that orange suit. What I don't like about this case is that they chain him up when the jury leaves the room. They chain him up like a slave when the jury leaves the room. When the jury comes back into the room, he's unchained. Suddenly he can move his hands. Jury leaves the room, he's chained up, and he can't even write. He can't even move his arms to sign any papers or pick up anything. What is the purpose of that other than a control issue? To control a black man in a racist system. Because that's what the system is. It's racist. If you don't believe me, just Google Harry Anslinger, please. Please, for the life of you, Google Harry Anslinger. He started the whole drug war. He's the reason why your fathers are being put in jail. He's the reason why your mothers are being made single mothers. He's the reason why the jails are filled up with blacks and Latinos. Harry Anslinger was a racist. He went to Congress and said horrible things about black people. And marijuana, which is a horrible word too. So yeah, Google Harry Anslinger and you'll understand why we have a drug war today. It's based on racism. Harry Anslinger said horrible things to Congress. To Congress. He says marijuana makes darkies think they're as good as white people. Really? That's shocking. Where are you going? You going to smoke weed? You going to leave me to my own defense? Say it. You got something to say. Say it.
Is this not your next guest?
Yeah.
He's going to be your guest.
We have a guest.
We're going over to have a pre-interview talk in my car.
Okay. Sure, that's what they all say. That's fine. Well, since my phone is connected, I am going to give a call to our friend. Hi. Hello there. All I ask is that you keep that coffee somewhere away from where it could fall. That's all.
Better?
That's all.
Comfortable. Go ahead.
Hi, Laura. How are you? Good to see you. What's going on?
Oh, ma'am. How are you?
Were you just at the courthouse?
I was. We just walked over from the courthouse. They're still interviewing Yolanda Ward, the detective for Trenton PD.
Really?
They're still in questioning, her. The prosecution is still speaking to her.
And what is she saying?
It's just more about the mailings,
Okay, what did he, let's back it up. He apparently mailed some stuff to...
Allegedly.
Allegedly mailed some stuff to these family members.
Yeah, and all that was in the packet was a Trentonian newspaper article. One second, let me get it.
Okay, and was it the article that was the threatening article, or was it just a basic, what was the article about?
No, it was just the article that said that he had added the, quote, rat to the lawsuit. That's all the article, basically was. In some of the mailings, there were, Bordentown Drug Watch.
Right, because the guy is allegedly a drug addict.
Yeah, but in all the mailings, he's basically just saying, show up in court,
He's inviting him to come to court.
He's inviting him. It's not threatening at all. There's no threats. He even says in one of the mailings, I don't want anything bad to happen to him. I'm not trying to have anything bad happen to him. I just want him to show up at court.
Yeah, Ed's a peaceful pothead. He's not some kind of gang leader or
Absolutely.
nothing. I mean,
he's not violent at all.
No, he brought peace and love to that street corner where there used to be crack and heroin.
Right. And he tries to avoid violence by all means and tries to, get people, he always says, if you have beef in the city, come to me we can sit down and we can all talk about it.
Over a joint.
Over a joint. So, I mean, he really isn't, he's not violent, and whatever the media has portrayed or what people think, his haters and everything, like, he really about him, certain times, like, there's no respect. But he's a vet, first and foremost.
With cancer.
With cancer, right. So, I don't know. I get kind of upset because people have this perception of Weed Man, with certain things that he does, but there's a reason that he got press, and that is what, if nobody was talking about it, then he would be just somebody else, just another number, going to jail, following the system, and what he was saying was the truth. That's the problem. It was the truth. So, I don't know. It's upsetting, but I do feel that just from sitting in court the past couple days, it seems positive on his side. Like, it seems like there is no crime yet that we can all see from sitting there. It's just some mailings. It wasn't really... for 20 years, I think it's excessive.
Let me see if we got Patrick Duff available.
He wasn't
really
there
good.
today.
Okay, yeah, he did some filming yesterday. And and apparently they're threatening him because he filmed.
Today, before everything even started, the judge came out and said no cell phones at all, there's no taping. None of that anymore. We're not allowed to have a cell phone out. Nothing. They're on us. So.
Well, yeah. No, there's no permission today.
There's no permission.
Nobody got permission. That's why. But we can get permission whenever we want. I'm going to get permission on probably the last day, or maybe a few more days. I'll get sporadic stuff. How long is this case going to go?
We don't know. We were just talking about that today. It's definitely going to go into next week. I believe that this is the last day for this week. I don't think they're going to, be in court in session tomorrow, but it starts again next week. I don't know. I feel like it's probably got to go at least another week, I would think.
Yeah.
Just from, we're not through the first witness yet.
Right. Right.
So.
Does she seem credible, or what's her story?
Like I said, she's the detective for Trenton.
Right.
So.
Like I said, does she seem credible?
Yeah, they kind of all have had it out for him anyway.
Right.
He really made them look stupid. And with the lawsuit against the city, they're just trying to find anything they can to keep him behind bars and keep him from speaking to the public.
She's very loud today. She has something to say today, huh? Wow. All right.
I think she's saying no mens rea.
No mens rea. That's what it was. No mens rea. I am the law. I am the law.
Yeah, so there's that. So that's been, that's been taking up a lot of our time this week. Just there has to be people have to come and listen to see what's going on, and it also helps you to protect yourself as well.
Yeah. I can't believe that they actually unchained him. First of all, they unchained him for court, but when the jury leaves the room, they chain him back up with all these chains where he can't even move. It's like he can't even open up. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense. Like I said, I don't know. I just hope the jury is looking at this like, what's the big deal? Like, it really, I don't know. Like, I'm hoping that they're, sensible people and they can kind of see through it.
Well, they don't see the point where he gets chained up.
Right.
They don't see a lot of stuff.
Right.
They don't see where they come over and yell at us for filming, Like,
they're really petty.
Yeah.
The officers in there are so petty. Like yesterday, one of the supporters were fanning themselves with a notebook because it was really hot in there, and they came over and was like, "You're not allowed to do that." So he said, "Okay." Like, he was like, "Why?" And he was like, "It's distracting." So when they went to sidebar and they had the white noise going, he fanned himself again because it was extremely hot in there. And they came over again and were like, "You are not allowed to fan yourself."
Who was fanning himself?
Bab?
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they don't like him either. He's too smart for them.
Right. So,
wow.
I don't know.
Yeah, they told me the other day I couldn't squat because I have a bad back. I have a fusion. I have an artificial disc. I got stenosis. I'm a mess. And for me to sit in a church pew for more than 10 minutes is going to be painful. It's
uncomfortable for a person that doesn't have back injury, so I can only imagine.
So I squatted the one day, and the guy says, "You can't do that." I'm like, "I got a bad back." He's like, "You can't do that. You got to leave." I'm like, "Okay." So then I brought my wheelchair. That's when I started bringing the wheelchair. Now I'm comfortable. Now I'm laying down in court with a pillow and blanket.
Right.
I mean, I got to go through this. but I am comfortable now, at least in court.
Good.
So it's better. Not like Ed's not, though.
No.
Not at all. He's being tortured. It's torturous. It's disgusting what they're doing to him. And they don't do this to any other people. Jim said that, oh, that's procedure. They chain people up procedurally. No, they don't. No, that's not. That's just something they do to people they don't like, and mostly black men and Latinos.
Well, this is my first trial, like actually sitting through, we've been going to weed man cases for a few years now in Trenton. But this is the first like real trial that we're sitting through with him. And like I said, it's just interesting to kind of see how it's all unfolding. I've been there. I was around the joint when it got raided. I was around, when we were harassed and our nighttime masses were getting shut down when they weren't supposed to be, and all of that. I was around for it, and it's just it's outrageous. It really is outrageous what happened to him.
Yeah, and also patients were arrested in the joint. They arrested 2 black dudes and 1 white dude, and they were all patients. Guess which one they let go?
Let me guess. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go first.
The white one.
The white guy. Yes, you won. They took the 2 black guys in, chained them to a wall for 5 hours as medical cannabis patients.
Was that during the original infraction?
Yes, one of the original, the original infraction. When they just started arresting patients.
I recall that.
And they're like, oh, wait, you're a patient after 5 hours? Oh, you can go. And unchain him.
The rationale was, but did they not see everybody's registration card?
They said they were fake.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But they said young men of color had fake registrations.
Yes.
In their estimation. They didn't know. They couldn't be sure.
They at one time said that we were making them at the joint.
Yeah, I remember that too. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's rich.
You got some skills, You gotta say, man.
I would have one.
It's a good idea, though. You could probably make some money doing that.
Terrible idea. That's not.
Yeah. Well, soon enough, you really won't need to because of 2 reasons. One, there will be more indications added, or we will have somebody's butt. And legalization, however long it takes, it might only be a year. Could be less than a year. We shall see. I appreciate at the end of the yesterday's meeting, at the advisory panel meeting, when I got back to the Department of Health to use my medicine, the Fab 5 were getting dropped off. I didn't know they started and stopped at Department of Health. They all come and go together to that last voting session. And the pharmacologist, I think she sat on the far right, a woman with blonde hair, and she told me not to give up what we do, stay on top of it. I know it's looking good, and
good.
We're hopeful these will be admitted, but you can't stop doing what you. She was like,
"Good morning."
That's it.
Yeah.
You're on the air.
Yo.
Patrick Duff.
Yes, it is.
It's Lefty Grimes and Jim Miller. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good, man. You're doing better than Weed Man, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing better than Weed Man. I got some crazy threats last night. Somebody emailed me, or somebody texted me.
Patrick, hold on, Patrick. Are you on speakerphone? Can you take off the speakerphone, please?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Yeah, I
Is
can.
that better?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
All right, so I got some crazy texts last night from some people threatening me, saying that when I showed up at the courthouse today, I would be put in handcuffs, taken to the basement, put through an ankle bracelet, and for videotaping the trial. They said at one point in the trial that I captured the jury, which for maybe about 0.2 seconds, the camera pointed towards like the back of the head of a juror for 0.2 seconds. You couldn't even identify one. But what I did is I just removed the video anyway, and I'm going to edit it, so everybody can see what's going on there. But, it's interesting because, I've been involved in a lot of criminal cases, and I've watched a lot of criminal cases, and there's always that one moment you're waiting for when the prosecution is putting on their case of the aha moment. That moment when you say, there's the crime, and I was still waiting for that after opening and after a full, their first detective, which, there should have been that aha moment, and there wasn't. The only aha moment yesterday was when you saw Weedman's video, and Weedman said, listen, to anybody that's a follower or a friend, do not bother this guy. Do not harass him. I want him to come to trial and testify. And the entire jury kind of like turned their head. Like it was like a dog, when you give a dog a command they don't understand. They're like, what? So, I've been doing pro se work myself, where I fought against, lawyers. I fought against townships, cities, all that stuff. And what happens is, the interesting thing is, Weedman has caused them to feel uncomfortable because the rules change a bit for pro se defendants. And I don't mean court rules. I mean the rules and what they will do against that person. They even get more dirty. And it actually shows their desperation. So I think the jury is going to see the desperation because they're trying to create a narrative of a crime, not a crime that's a part of a narrative. You understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Stunningly clear.
So what I actually had a chance to talk to Ed last night on, from jail. And listen, I've won big trials before, and I've helped people win them. So I said to him, listen, you had a cop up there who testified to all these events that happened. One on September 3rd, September 8th, September 13th. But all these events happened in September and October that she testified to. And he was not arrested until March. So I told him, I said, listen, what you need to do is individually go over all those dates with the police officer and ask her, why didn't you arrest me that day when I sent the lawsuit to Zev's dad? Why didn't you arrest me the day when I sent the lawsuit to his mom? Why didn't you arrest me the day that I was in the newspaper and I made the comment that I don't care if he dies? Well, if she can't say she couldn't, or she says she couldn't arrest him because nothing he did was actually illegal, that's the correct answer. And she'll have to say that. And once he gets through all the different dates in which they've listed, and gets her to agree there's no reason that she could have arrested him at that point, then the jury is going to see right through the story.
That's a pretty easy to follow line of logic. It's the one time I was distracted was when then she's going to have to, and what happens is when I hear that, I think you would think they have to play by certain rules at that point. And, like you said, how dirty they're willing to get with a pro se defendant. I don't know. I am so happy to hear you lay that out because it just sounds like he does have a lot better chance than I would have thought before talking with you.
And listen, that's the reason why I wanted to come see the opening and also see that especially that first detective, because that's their case. And what happens is when I'm going to create a case against somebody, I want to, number one, I want to build up the aha moment. I surely don't want to say, as the prosecutor said, which was very interesting, he was trying to use a old Columbo opening where he'd say, folks, if only that happened, we wouldn't be here today. And if only this happened, we wouldn't be here today. But this happened. That's why we're here today. And he never did that. He only said that if only each event that Ed did happened, we wouldn't be here today, including the event that they indicted Ed upon.
That's true.
Which was a newspaper article where he said, I don't care if the person dies. So if the prosecutor's saying he couldn't, we shouldn't be here today because of that one event that he was indicted upon, that's going to be the easiest way to go at that officer and say, hey, that newspaper article that I was indicted upon, why didn't you arrest me when you read that day? And why didn't you arrest the newspaper who printed a direct threat in the newspaper? The reporter or the editor. Because you can't print a direct threat in a newspaper. So there would be several co-conspirators to list at that point, correct?
Any indication how long? Is there any indication by anybody so far how long this might play out before it goes to jury?
Oh, it's going to be at least 7 days. I'm guessing. The way that they're going through these witnesses is they're going to be very, and I think that's their mistake. And what they don't understand is that the jury's already getting bored. You know, they were looking at the clock. Some were yawning. A lot of them stopped writing. I don't know if you noticed that. Like,
no, I didn't.
Some of them just put their books away. Yeah, see, I had a different angle than everybody else, so I could see what they were doing. And literally, like about half the jury didn't take any more notes after about halfway through the officer's testimony. And that's pretty important, because what they were seeing is redundancy, and they were also waiting for a crime. You know, if you want to ask me, the only way that this is in a courtroom is in a civil courtroom under maybe a defamation lawsuit.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, they're looking for 20 years.
That's the only thing I see here.
Yeah, as opposed.
And they're looking for 20 years for one of the most serious crimes in our justice system.
Yeah. You know
what's really interesting, if you look in the city of Trenton, how many people actually are threatened as witnesses, and how many people actually get charged with such. Oh, it's a fraction of the people that get threatened and don't show up to court. But all of a sudden, with Weedman, you know, they're going to figure out how to use that charge. I would like to actually get a public records on how many people are charged with witness intimidation in Trenton in 1 year. I bet you it's very few.
They won't give you that.
So, and what I want people to understand and lay out here is that, listen, the reason why I went to California and did churches is because me and Weedman went to the Liberty Bell together. We got arrested smoking a joint, and we appealed the decision, and the decision said that we are allowed to use cannabis in our houses, our house of worship, or any other non-federal location. So when I went to California and I opened dispensaries, I opened them as churches. Now, as a church, there's no real way that the government can claim that you are not a church, you understand? So churches are the only thing, by the way, that doesn't have to pay taxes and file a 501. You don't have to file a 501c3 at a church, okay? So Weedman was operating a church in Trenton there. Next to him was a restaurant. Now, imagine this. So he's freely having people come in there for months, over a year, smoking marijuana, doing what they have to do. There's no fights, there's no crimes, nothing's happening. So they can't get him on the church aspect. So they start harassing his restaurant, which was zoned properly, about selling food after 11 o'clock.
Yep.
So just so you understand what I'm saying here is, since they couldn't get him originally on what was going on in the church, they tried to harass him out by harassing his restaurant, right?
Yes.
Now, since they sent an informant inside the church, and they know, by the way, just so everybody understands, it happened inside of a church. So what happens inside of a church is not the same as what happens on the street. It's not admissible in court. Okay? Once that detective admits today that that's a church, which he's going to get her to admit that she walked into a church and that she wouldn't walk into a Catholic church the same and do that. Why did that immigrant why did that guy just come out of a church after like 2 years? It was an Episcopal church. Why couldn't they go in there and arrest him? Why could they go in Weedman's church and arrest people? You see, so there's a different set of rules, but not once you hit the court systems. The court systems understand religious freedoms. At least I should say the federal court systems do. So what they did is, instead of getting him on that ounce of pot that allegedly was sold, they figured out how to get him on something else that could be convoluted, and found the vaguest charge to fit the narrative in to create a crime, not finding the crime within the narrative to fit the narrative to make a crime. And I've never really seen anything like it. Very interesting.
Let me ask you, Patrick. Is the jury going to know the potential 20 years that Ed faces?
Does the jury know? Absolutely not. The jury can't know. So that's the sad part, is that a jury doesn't even know the punishment that they're recommending a guilty verdict on.
Why not?
And,
why? They do know the nature that it's called witness intimidation. Do they hear that phrase?
Yeah, they hear that phrase.
Okay.
Why?
They hear that phrase,
well,
and they also.
They should. They're smart people. They should know it's a substantial penalty for witness intimidation. Many should.
Well, nobody knows what penalties are. I mean, you got to understand, when you're on a jury, you're one person amongst 12, where everybody is trying to go home, you know. But let's be honest, does anybody really care if he goes to jail for 20 years on that jury? Probably not, because they don't know him, you understand? And that's why I told Ed that today, you need to be Ed. You need to be charismatic. You need to be yourself. You need to let them know who you are. You need to smile. Because if you're just a person to them, you know, saying guilty is a lot easier than saying not guilty. Especially when they're being pressured by the judge.
Patrick, what type of things are you seeing them do to screw him over? I noticed they chain him up when the jury leaves the room.
Well,
is that normal?
That's nothing compared to what they've done is they won't allow him to admit the evidence of why he was on trial previous. What was the trial previous? They only can call it an official proceeding. He can't say I was arrested for, you know, allegedly selling marijuana. That this, you know, he can't bring in the fact that he was suing the city for, you know, violating his rights as a restaurant. He can't bring in the fact that Officer Flowers, you know, online, he called the guy a pedophile when he's being, you know, sued by the city, or, you know, he's got charges against him by the city. He can't show the pattern which led up to this point. Now, that, number one, is going to be a majorly appealable portion of the case. Number two, the prosecutor in the grand jury indictment used the wrong wording. The witness intimidation says a reasonable person would not want to testify, right? Would not want to testify. That means would is different than could. And she used the word could. She also used the word could in the jury instructions for the grand jury when the charge itself clearly says would. Now, so there's just two appealable offenses right there. Another appealable offense, which is I've already seen, is the fact that they're only playing portions of the videos. That's incomplete evidence, and they can't just show portions of it. You guys still there?
Yeah, they showed him smoking a joint in the one video, and I think they cut that part out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is they're showing impartial evidence, and that was the argument that he made at the sidebar at that point. And you know what? And that's what I'm saying, is he's pro se. They're railroading him every way they can. They told us, as people taking pictures, they gave us the most restrictive set of rules that's ever been given to any reporter walking inside of a courtroom. And the court reporter next to me, from, I believe he was from the Star-Ledger maybe, he told me that was the most restrictive rules he's ever been given on any case, including major murder trials and rape trials. So Weedman's rules of court are the most strict and stringent that I have ever seen anybody have.
Yeah, filming rules, just procedural rules, everything is going against him.
Yeah, they're definitely stacking the deck. But I mean, it's interesting because the deck, when you're in pre-trial, when the deck is stacked, when the jury is sitting there watching, and you have a prosecutor who's desperate, and you have a defendant who's willing to admit freely what he did. That's what the interesting part is. And if I was him, I'd almost say, next time you bring your witness up, you don't have to go through all this. I set the package. You're right. That's my name on it. And it was the funny part. The package was to Ed, and he said, "Hey, do you recognize this?" And Ed looked at it and he goes, "I sent it."
Yeah, that's mine.
So, but yeah, I think the next step here for how to make sure this is fair. I've contacted the ACLU about the taping thing. They haven't responded. The only way to really make sure this is a fair trial is for Ed to break the rules a little bit, and for them to introduce stuff that they actually introduced a lawsuit yesterday, so now he can bring Hayburn in.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So what happens is once they slip and introduce certain pieces of evidence, then the ruling that these pieces of evidence can't be admitted is voided because the side that actually said let's not bring it in did it themselves. Now he has a right to bring that in. They've opened the Pandora's box.
Now you had a great interview with Hayburn. How'd that go?
Well, he told me very specifically that I never told Ed to post anything online. Interesting enough, that night I did a little research and I found a post by him saying I only advised him to not threaten him when he posts, which there's that's a contradiction there. Did you never tell him to post or did you tell him to not threaten him?
When you post, when you don't post. Make up your mind.
Yeah. So my question to him was kind of a simple one, but kind of it's a legal question that you can ask somebody. You say to him, well then, let's say somebody was going to rob a bank. Would you tell them, how to rob the bank more safely? And he said, well, no, lawyers don't tell people how to commit better crimes. I said, well, if you told him, then it's got to be one or the other.
Right.
If you told him to not threaten anybody online and he didn't, and he's sitting in court for your advice, then you were wrong. Okay? Right? Am I correct?
He needs
but hey, listen, I have to run because I'm about to be interviewed by some Stockton University professors for a project I'm doing with Martin Luther King.
Oh, they're more important than us? Oh, really? Okay, fine, Patrick Duff. That's fine. They're more important than us. I get it.
But I will talk to you guys a little later.
Thanks, brother.
I'll give you a call. All right.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Man,
Patrick Duff. Report from the Weedman's case, Ed Fortune in Trenton. Patrick Duff was one of the original people to smoke cannabis at the Liberty Bell in Philly with Ed back in the day. And look who's here from the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association, Scott Rudder. Hello, sir. How are you? Great to see you, man.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
What's up, brother?
Good, man.
What's going on?
Yeah, we're just talking about Weedman's case. Sorry about that, Jim.
It's all right. Better to err on the side of caution.
What brings you to Trenton?
It's Thursday.
Yeah.
Must be Trenton Day.
We're all here.
We're all here.
That's what we do.
What's happening, guys?
Yeah, last podcast of October.
Just pull it out. It's really stuck in there. Yeah, there
we go.
Yeah, we've been of course, involved with the Ed Fortune's ongoing case, and that was a very interesting, informative call. It sounds like he's got options. He's not just taking it to the end and hoping for the best. I'm pretty heartened to hear a lot of that. Like I was saying to Patrick, though, when I heard the phrase, and he laid it out beautifully, when I heard the phrase, then they will have to, and I thought, no, when things have gone south in my life is, what do you mean they didn't? When they have to, they will have to. Like the Department of Health will have to file the first annual report before that second year is up. In other words, they have to do that. But it turns out they didn't. And everything delayed after that for getting indications added. So when I hear somebody saying you're talking about 20 years in the balance, perhaps, but then once that happens, they have to. Boy, you don't know.
Yeah, you don't really know.
He made a good point before that pro se candidates get taken, not more advantage of, but they get played hard.
He said the word railroaded was the word he used.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get some happier stuff.
Yeah, we need happy news, Scott, please.
Yeah. Hey, I got happy news.
Good.
There's an election on November 7th.
That's happy?
That's happy news.
Are you running?
I am not running, thankfully. I spent 16 years in elected office. I'm good.
Yeah, you must appreciate that this time of year especially,
Well, I will tell you, all these guys, at all levels, the local councilmen, school board members, the mayors, the assembly members, senators, and obviously the people running for governor, It is a significant chunk of your life if you're doing it effectively, and you spend a lot of time away from your family and work trying to make sure that you're knocking on doors and getting to the community events and getting your messaging out there. And I think that one of the things I appreciate from all these folks who are running for office on both sides of the aisle, the people that are dedicated, and some people you like, some people you don't, but they're all, if they're out there and they're working, that's good stuff, right? Yeah. Knocking on doors, talking to people, getting engaged in the conversation, whether, like I said, the local or state level, it's amazing. And, and I do appreciate this time of year now because I do get to go to my kids' thing after school, and this thing over here. My weekends are not knocking on doors. You always have when I ran for assembly, I had an objective of 10,000 doors. I don't think I ever actually hit 10,000, maybe 8,000. I mean, that's sort of like the high standard you want to achieve.
I don't know how you do that.
That's pretty good.
No, well, that's what you do is you just kind of knock it out, and I would bring my kids with me on a Saturday. To help knock on doors, just so I could spend some quality time, even, right? Yeah. So these guys, the people running for office, both sides.
You run into people who take you on at their doorway when you're knocking on doors.
Most people are very respectful. They appreciate the fact that you're there.
Yeah. Well, it happens to me when somebody knocks on my door and they're not from the party I would normally vote for. I'm impressed by their getting out and getting it done like that.
Just being there is important for people, and I've had doors shut on my face too. But I would say 98% of the time.
That's not why you brought your kids then.
No. Well, that's the thing. No one shuts the door on me when I have the kids with the wagon behind me, right?
I'm just saying.
But look, most people are very respectful and they just appreciate that you're making the outreach.
10 years ago, I was running for office, but I wasn't the effective campaigner. I wasn't there to be effective. I was there to have one issue and take what came my way, and the advisory board of the editorial board of the Asbury Park Press having me in. I got to finally meet my senator by doing that, and it was pretty epic, I got to say.
Yeah, I'm
Senator Andrew Cecila, not a bad guy, but he refused to meet with Cheryl and me for 9 years. So I met him in the lobby of the Asbury Park Press, and he assumed that we'd met. He goes, "We've met." And I go, "Here's what's going on. We've picketed your office so many times. You've looked out your window to see us, and you feel like you know me. Is that it?" Yeah. And the look on his face was priceless, So anyway, just to make a quick story of it, I said, "Listen, be that as it may, there's another issue that, as a constituent, I'd like to talk to you about." The Commissioner of Health, George D. Fernando, said that there's alternatives that work just as well as cannabis, and it became health department policy just by him saying that. That's what he's telling me, and apparently it's true. I have a problem with one person. What if he said, "No problem with West Nile virus"? Would that be policy?
Right.
Do you see the problem?
Yeah.
And you know what he said to me? He went, "Oh, I'm sorry, I tuned you out." He said that to me like I would get upset, and that was it, and I said, "Oh, man, that was a classical error, dude."
Wow.
And I walked away smiling. Now we're sitting this close, and they're on the other side of the table, and he realizes, "Oh no, I'm not going after it. I'm not going," and I'm waiting. And at one point he talked about the disconnect between legislators and their constituents, because Republicans not being,
Great setup.
And that was his setup. And then it got to me, and I said that we agree then for the first time about the disconnect as best evidenced in the lobby where I met you for the first time, and I told you about a problem I was having. And do you recall what you said to me? And I counted to 3. I started to feel sorry for him. I didn't. You said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I tuned you out," And I said, "Now with disconnect like that," I went back to the editors. I said, "With disconnect like that in your office lobby, you can imagine how hard it is." And I went on. And he said, "I'd like to say that the reason I didn't meet with them was because they were picketing my office." I go, "Now, logical people will know it's the other way around. The reason we were picketing your office was you didn't meet with us." Of course, that
circular.
Yeah, so it was really
Cause
fun.
and effect.
But so see, I did it for that. But Scott, I'll tell you, my issue back there 10 years ago was that legislators should embrace the issue. It's popular. There is a segment of the population that will be interested. It's bipartisan, really, when you get down to it. I mean, people, not legislators necessarily at the time. And I wanted to show that in a close election, there's a certain amount of, so I had one issue, and no matter what somebody asked, I'd drag it back. Didn't matter. Is the Ocean County Observer editorial. Well, what about the Route 9 widening? How do you feel about that? When, you know, I do have an opinion, and they, you know, and I asked Cheryl about that one time riding down, and she said, ow, because it went over a bump, and she didn't have any marijuana, and her back hurt. And they did, one threw his pen in the air and laughed, and anyway. But the point is I got 4.26% of the vote, which is actually a percentage that could matter.
Sure.
In a race. That was
a lot of close races.
My reason was just to say, okay, I'll be the prototype if I only have one issue, and neither of my opponents supported it, not even the Democrat.
And you know, a lot of people who run for office, they're not running from, they're not running for multiple issues. You know, it's usually when they're first running.
Yeah.
You know, the local school board, you know, you don't like the education system, or you're a soccer mom and you feel like, you know, at the township level they're not paying attention to kids' needs or whatever, and that's what motivates you, and that's why you run for office. But then when you're in that seat, now you have to deal with everything that comes before you. You have to have an opinion on everything that you never even contemplated. Right. So there lies a lot of the challenge.
That is playing out on the federal stage and stage.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
Must say, but I mean, it makes good sense. You know, the first time in, you got a shot at making some headway with one really good issue.
What was that wedge
before?
Vote? Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you do have to know a lot about things I would never know anything about. So
but you know what, your wedge issue at the time is something that has, you know, you guys have led this effort from the beginning, and you've had, you in particular, you know, you have had such a significant impact that goes beyond any elected official could do.
Yeah.
You keep that conversation flowing, and you keep this movement going. And now we see, just the other day, yesterday, I came out, you know, right now nationally. So we know that a recent poll came out, Quinnipiac says that 59% of New Jerseyans support legalization, full legalization.
Really?
Right, Quinnipiac poll. So it's not a High Times Magazine poll, it's
not
a Scott Rutter New Jersey Cannabis Business poll. It's a scientific Quinnipiac poll that we know for certain did not have a skew on there. So that was a New Jersey specific one. Well, yesterday,
I'm sorry, 59% was unopposed, because that never totals to 100% usually. I mean, it doesn't usually, does it? Some don't know. 59.
Then it'd be like 4% undecided or something to that effect. But it's you know, the strong opposition has faded.
59 is a big number.
59 is a huge number, particularly when we're talking full adult legalization.
Yeah.
It's almost universal today because of your efforts. Universal today on the medical side. There's very, very few people that don't appreciate some level of medical cannabis. The adult use side's harder discussion for people. They have to get over some of their stereotypes, some of their concerns, the gateway theory, kids are going to die, and all these other things. And we want to make sure that, you know, for example, well, let me go back to the other poll that I was just about to mention. A Gallup poll, again, a national,
I've heard of them too.
Nationally accredited polling organization. Gallup came out the other day with similar numbers from a legalization across the country. Was in the 60 percentile range. It was like 67%, the highest they've ever recorded. But what's notable was that 51% of the Republicans are now supportive. It's the first time in the 50-year history.
That's big.
50-year history of the Gallup poll asking this question about should cannabis be legalized or not. The first time that the Republican person answering that poll, it was 51%. You know, I'm a Republican.
I appreciate knowing that, because that's something I will be able to use from here on out. It just makes the discussion so much more legitimate. It's almost like I get to help Republicans out by helping them understand this now. It's to their benefit, because this is their base, not mine.
Yeah, you're having an impact. And all the stuff that you guys are doing on a daily basis is having an impact. And it's not just your organization, my organizations across the country. And it's because we're allowing, also for the first time, science and education to help sway our opinion, not some marketing campaign from the Nixon era. Okay, so we're allowing facts and studies. So we're looking at, so for example, the United States Department of Health and Human Service, they do a survey every year on substance abuse. And so it includes nicotine, alcohol, it includes cocaine, it includes cannabis, it includes heroin, it includes a whole host of things. The United States Department of Health and Human Services showed that in their study that we are now at a 20-year low for teenage use of cannabis. So the fear that a lot of people had, oh my God, if we legalize this, all these kids are going to get stoned. No, we're at a 20-year low of
And
teenage use.
this follows the exponential increase in all issues cannabis being, I mean, they should be more by the Nixon era logic. And I try to tell people, to my knowledge, teenage use is not what got the uptick in Colorado. It was adult use, had an
Absolutely.
uptick.
That was the only uptick.
That's it.
In fact, teenage use went down in Colorado by 2%. I mean, it wasn't a dramatic decline, but it was a decline nonetheless.
Was there a decline nationally to compare with that? In other words, when I say
compared to other states, yes.
So 2% decline.
And that was in Colorado, but nationally, it's a 20-year low.
Yeah.
And
that's
and then there's other issues I talk to people about on a daily basis anymore, and it's like driving impaired, right?
Yeah,
so, oh my goodness, what about people that are going to smoke and drive, and you have to have that conversation. Well, the other good news is that there's another study by another accredited institution, did an analysis between Colorado and Washington State on traffic fatalities, and then they did a control study of 8 other states that don't have cannabis legalization. So they looked at Colorado, they looked at Washington, and they compared it to 8 other states, and they found that there's no difference whatsoever. Not that there's no significant difference, there's no difference between the Colorado and Washington and states that don't have things legalized when it comes to traffic fatalities. That's fantastic news, because that also addresses people's fears about impaired driving. So when I talk about this regularly, I talk about impaired driving is bad no matter what the situation is, whether
Absolutely.
it's cough syrup,
Distracted
whether it's
driving,
whatever it is. So we know that texting, we know that our phone is the #1 instrument that's causing distracted driving, which is leading the issue for traffic fatalities. And it's not just the texting anymore. It's not just the phone calls anymore. Now people are checking on their Facebook and their Instagram. They're uploading. They're doing selfies. And all these things are leading to traffic fatalities, but it is not cannabis.
Right.
The other thing, too, is that I also share with folks is that there's a huge difference in the dynamic of the individual who is an active cannabis user or an active alcohol user. So if I'm an alcohol user, I'm probably going to the bar. I'm probably hanging out with my buddies after work, probably having a couple drinks. We're going to go watch the 76ers. We're going to go watch the Trailblazers. We're going to watch something on TV at a sports bar, or we're going out to dinner with our friends. That's something where people really exit their homes, they drink, and then they drive back.
Yeah.
Cannabis typically is not something that you go out. There's no place in the United States where there is a cannabis bar. There's no legal place in the United States where you're going to consume cannabis, consume food like you do at a sports bar or something along those lines. So the whole dynamic is different. And I think that's why you're not seeing impaired driving increase for cannabis users. I think that's why, because most folks that are sort of use it on a regular basis are either for medical purposes or recreational purposes, but they're not getting in the car like alcohol users are.
No, that's a good point. And, I know that because being a social drinker, I am incredibly afraid to drive after having even a
Well, they skew these stats. A lot of times they'll say fatalities for cannabis, and they'll have these numbers, but they don't include alcohol. They take alcohol out of those stats.
Out of the equation, right. So the guy could have THC in their system from 2 weeks ago,
right.
And they were drinking and driving, and that's what caused the accident. Or maybe it was distracted driving because they were texting.
Right.
And they do an analysis. It's in the system for 2 weeks. And or months even. So it depends on, like a heavy guy like me, it's going to be there a little bit longer than you, right? So, not that I do that anyway.
Well, that's an advantage,
who's listening
I guess.
to this? Is this thing on?
Barely.
It's I think.
By a thread.
Field sobriety tests, seem like not even something that would necessarily work.
I watched Jessie pass one stoned as hell. I just smoked a blunt with her, and she passed a sobriety test. But she smokes blunts all day, so.
Yeah.
Well, the key thing here is, right, so is really going to be, it's getting the comfort level of other people, right? So you and I, we may feel very comfortable about what cannabis is and cannabis is not, but it's also, it's the impaired driving. There's going to be 2 main issues that we're going to be addressing as we have the debate on expanding cannabis, the cannabis industry in New Jersey. It's going to be impaired driving, and it's going to be gateway theories. And so, it still is.
We're still back to that, huh?
Well, you know why? Because we're talking to each other, right? We're not having a community, 400 people in a room having a general conversation about it. So it's this moment where we have to get outside of our general discussion and comfort zones and really get out and talk to the community. So when these legislators are going to be voting on bills, you know, in the first 100 days of the next administration, you know, we need to make certain that they are comfortable with it. So it's not just talking to them. Their comfort level will also come from their constituents. And so getting their constituents okay with things, talking to the local chiefs of police, the local mayors, the local school members, and things like that, that's very important. And that's where statistics are very important. That's why scientific research is very important.
What do you think, suppose legalization, there's a certain amount of usage of cannabis going on now as it's not illegal and always has been. What is that increase actually going to be? I mean, to say that right now all these concerns are valid with people driving by us now,
right,
because there's a certain amount that smoke and then drive. Is it you know, but it's not going to be like a tenfold increase. It's not going to be a 50% increase.
No, certainly not. And
it's going to be a.
That's why it was
10% increase.
Zero. You don't want it to be. You want it to be zero.
I mean, in adults that do not smoke now that start smoking if it's legal, it's just not going to be a huge influx of new people.
No, that's a good point.
And
so
right now, these other people are driving, including me.
Right. So there's. In the average population, so again, like using cannabis industry, so talking to my peers in other states to kind of look at what's the general population of the average consumer. So it's about between 10 to 12% of the population. So New Jersey, we have 9 million people, so let's just call it 10%. So there's 900,000 people in New Jersey that are already consumers of cannabis, okay? So that's your general population. So already today, 900,000 people are feeding drug dealers, they're feeding cartels,
not paying taxes,
and they're not paying taxes
on buying the product.
They're not buying product. They're not creating jobs, not creating legal jobs anyway. And you know, so all this money is going to people that are doing nefarious and illegal activities, not creating entrepreneurs, not creating jobs. Plus the product that they have. Where did that come from? How was that tested? Does it have fentanyl in there? Is it opioid laced in there? You know, when you're going to a drug dealer that is providing you cannabis, and that's somebody that you go to regularly, and the one day that he doesn't have cannabis and he says to that kid, hey, I don't have cannabis this week, but you know, I got these pills. You may want to try them out. It's even better. You know, that's the kind of thing that we should all be concerned about.
And they don't card.
Drug dealers don't card, dispensary operators do.
Yeah.
And that's another very important fact. So, and the other important fact is when we do have an industry in place, that cannabis will also be tested. So we're going to help to eliminate pesticides. We're going to ensure that mold and fungus aren't in there. You know, there's two gentlemen who passed away last year in California, medical marijuana patients. California does not have a rigid, they will now. They're starting to implement a more of a regulated industry in California, because one of the things that they're learning is that, you know, there's a lot of good characters who are growing cannabis out there and they're doing great stuff and they're very conscientious, and there's a lot of characters who are not. And so we've had people who have 2 cancer patients, very weak immune systems, who smoked cannabis last year and died as a result. They didn't die because of the cannabis, they died because of the fungus. So the fungus that they ingested impacted their immune system, and they died as a result. That happened twice last year in California, and that's the kind of thing that we need to be concerned about here in New Jersey and other places, to make sure that the stuff that is tested, it's regulated, that we know that there's not going to be pesticides in there, and we know that, like, again, some dude that's growing weed in his basement that he's going to sell as a drug dealer, and he gets some mites on his plants, and he's going to go to the local hardware store, he's going to get all kinds of pesticides to make sure he kill it, and he's going to sell it to some kid. That's not okay, right? So that's what happens when you have a regulated industry that has a testing as part of their program.
What did they have? What illness did they have? Do you know?
They were both cancer patients.
Cancer.
Well, they had compromised.
They had compromised immune systems,
you know.
and so.
Wow.
And now, for people who would hope that, I think everybody, at least I've tried to hope everybody's accepted the fact that, okay, it's looking like legalization, very realistic, not home grow this time around. And I'm trying to say, okay, if this is the way it's going, I want to put my energy into things that I can be effective to a degree, but I agree with everybody else that I have hopes that perhaps if patients had a home grow provision, registered medical
Right.
marijuana patients, much like was in the Senate law passed on the floor, out of committee and on the floor in 2009. I've been kind of hoping that the disappointment among many of our colleagues, peers, I don't know, are a herd of cats that kind of follows and kind of helps and kind of doesn't. No, I'm just saying.
No, they're the grassroots. They're the power. They started the whole process.
I think patients. I believe there's a possibility that. Not saying it would be done in the same law, but even by realization that it's going to look really hard that patients that heard about this for the last year really did have their hopes up that, well, if we couldn't get it for patients, at least every other state has home. Well, we're not every other state, and it's not going to happen that way. But for patients, I'm hoping, and then they could be.
We're screwed.
Well, they could be looked at. And a way to point to, well, we're going to look at it for patients, and we can see how that goes. And in the future, it's the way to put things off more reasonably, I think, for the future.
Yeah, and I think here's the discussions, and I talked about this at length in the very beginning of this debate. I don't think, generally speaking, notionally speaking, Budweiser doesn't care if you brew your beer at home, right? Starbucks doesn't really care if you're brewing your coffee at home. They know that eventually you're going to go to their stores because it's much more convenient.
Right.
So a lot of people that like home grow as an idea, too, in practice, it's a stinky plant. It's a stinky plant. I mean, I love. I should say I love the smell. Did I say I love the smell? Is my mom listening to this? But it is a pungent plant. So I don't know how many people in actual practice would go like, yeah, I'm going to have like 9 plants in my house because your whole house is going to smell like cannabis. So that being said, one of the things I think to get the yes votes here in New Jersey, in Trenton, is that not be on the list. And it's not because there's oh my gosh, we can't, it's a big cannabis thing and we don't want, corporate cannabis doesn't want this to happen. It's about getting as many yes votes as possible. And that yes vote comes with comfort. I need to be comfortable with this. And so when out in Colorado, just this past summer, there were 70 some odd people who were arrested. And they were home growing, they had a cooperative, and it was the federal government came down and picked, in coordination with local law enforcement, came in and picked them up, and you had 70 some odd people arrested. I think as long as there's Schedule 1 going on, until that's rectified, I think it's going to be really hard for not just New Jersey and other states are going to come online on the adult use side to do that because of the crackdown that's going on in other states. And also the key objective as we're selling this to legislators is that we want to dry up the black market, not exacerbate it. Yeah. And I think that's part of it.
Is Colorado a good model for that as well? I really don't know.
The truth
I'm
is,
more learning than giving right now. There's still revenue in Colorado.
They're doing amazing revenue.
Amazing revenue. Didn't hurt the state.
It's not hurting the state. Home grow does not, again, it's not the impact on the industry. Colorado had so last year, 2016, Colorado had $1.3 billion in retail sales. That's retail sales. That's not the marketing guy who developed the website for the local retail store. That's not the attorney. That's not the plumber. That's not the electrician and the security guy. That's just retail sales. So you have to exponentially add to that all the other economic benefits that came with it. So that was 12 months.
Is there any number on that somewhere?
12? There is, but 12 months, $1.3 billion. The first 8 months of this year, 2017, they sold $1 billion on the retail side. First 8 months, they're going to be on track to be 1.5, maybe 1.6 billion dollars. So they're going to be greater than they were before. When you look at their population, they're 5.5 million. They have 78 million visitors. Right? We're 9 million, not quite double, but pretty close. We have 99 million visitors last year. So we are 21 million visitors more than they have. So the people that come here, they go to Atlantic City and they stay overnight and they do all these things. We have the potential to be $2 to $3 billion of regulated sales in New Jersey, just on their adult use side. And again, so therefore, I just kind of bring this back around. The concern is not the economic impact for the home grow issue. It's the Schedule 1 at the federal level and getting the yes votes here at the state house. That's where that becomes an issue. But going back to your other point, there's a strong argument to be made on home grow for medical patients. There's a lot of, whether it's an economic issue or, you know, talking to a concerned parent that we all know, talking to that concerned parent, there's only one strain that helps his child because she has a seizure disorder and autism. So there's one strain, and why should this person be subject to the whims of the industry to get the medication for his child when he could be able to do this at home? So there's a strong argument to be made on that side because that is something that, you know, when it comes down to medical, even the feds, even Jeff Sessions is a little wobbly, a little weak in the knees when it comes to that, and particularly if we're talking about a child with significant
issues. It's affordability in most cases, I think, and there's good points to be made that, well, many patients can't do this for themselves, so, you know, if there was patient transfer provisions of some sort, much like dispensaries would like to have the ability, I believe, to do that, or there's a bill that's just not going anywhere right now, I think, that says that. But it makes sense, and like you're saying, for patients, people get a little more realistic about what might need to be done, because there's just so many that cannot afford their medicine.
Absolutely.
A black market, legal market, anything.
Look, I went to Breakwater last week, and there was a line, about 15 people in front of me, which has never happened before, and they were sold out of the strand that I wanted. And that's because of all these new patients that were added, which I have no, you know, grudge towards that. But the dispensaries can't keep up with the patients that we have right now. How are we going to keep up with the recreational, social use?
Yeah, and that's a big concern, and I've shared that with legislators. I've shared, obviously, clearly with our own membership at the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association.com, and 609-257.
Go for it, man.
Do it.
I'll ask you to say it twice.
We're going to add you.
But you know, that's something that we have to be very cognizant of. As we roll this out, there cannot be any negative impact on the medical patient.
Thank you.
So when we do this,
that's huge.
Because there is an effort to, you know, it's in the legislation, Senator Scutari's legislation, to allow the current license holders to sell at the adult use market to sort of kickstart the program. Other states have done it. Nevada, Washington, other states have allowed
it gets rid of the sales tax on medical?
It gets rid of the sales tax on medical and allows to sell the adult use market, but we have to make certain through legislative process and regulatory process that we don't impact the patient load. That needs to be clear. That is something that is sacrosanct. We cannot touch that in pursuit of the adult market.
But what if it does?
It can't. So we have to make sure that it doesn't. And I can't tell you exactly how that's going to work.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have, you know, like, and I don't know how that's going to work, but I'll use a scenario that may be an example that whereby, you know you have a patient load of 3,000 or whatever it is for Breakwater. I don't know what their patient load is, but they have a 3,000 patient load. They need to make sure they have 3,500, you know, a patient load projection. They need to anticipate that and have that as a set aside. And if they start to see it going down and there's more on the adult use side, they need to make certain that gets transferred over legally and compliantly, because they will be two separate systems for a period of time. At least that's what's being projected. So you go to Colorado, you know, and you go into one of the grow facilities, and you'll see all the plants. By the way, there's not a medical plant and an adult use plant. It's the same plant. It's all in how it's being regulated and how it's being tracked.
Well, let's bust that myth right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a plant, man. And so you'll have like a red tag on the adult use one and a blue tag on the medical one, and it's just on how they're tracking it.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. There needs to be a process to make certain that as we kickstart the program, that on the medical side it is not being negatively impacted.
Yeah, well, on the medical side, it's really hard to tell where we're going to be this time next year because of all the yesterday being the medical marijuana advisory panel's final vote, sending it to the Department of Health, all the recommendations. The estimate's hard to come by, how many people, but it's not out of the question that it could be somewhere in the 80 to 100,000 people range in a year.
Easily.
That will be able to get into the program.
Arizona has a very robust and regulated medical cannabis industry. And they have like around 5 million people. They have I think they have 125,000 patients, 250,000. They have 250,000 patients.
Yeah, so we could go 450
easily.
Proportionally.
And that will be.
That's huge.
It'll be huge, and it's important that we allow.
It's going to be fast too, though.
And know what else?
Relatively,
it'll be fast, no matter who wins, actually, because both candidates are very, very supportive of expanding on the medical side. But what we're going to see is, as the medical cannabis grows, we're going to see opioid use go down, as we've seen in other states.
Man,
and talk about really, you want to really tackle the issue, you really want to tackle the opioid epidemic, you're going to add medical cannabis and adult use cannabis, because in both instances, in those states, they go down. Overdoses go down, use go down.
That's our basic math sign over here is opioids plus cannabis equals less addiction and less
very simple
death.
formula.
And my concern is that we will see that happen, and Reach New Jersey is going to get all the credit. I'm just saying that while they're not dealing with cannabis at all, and while recommendations both in New Jersey and at the federal level ignore the synergistic effect of cannabis, analgesically speaking, with
people like
with
you,
opiates.
people like you, people like me, people like Lucky. We're gonna make certain that everybody knows where the cause and effect is. We've seen it in other states. Those newspapers are reporting it. Studies,
and it's not for the pat on the back.
No, it's not about the pat on the back.
It's just that people need to know
public
where
awareness.
to go.
It's education and awareness. Like, for example, I don't envision necessarily. So opioids. Let's talk about a narcotic. You have major back surgery. Cannabis is not really going to help you that first week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to need something pretty strong. So we're not talking about total elimination. We're talking about balance. Yeah. So do I need a 10-day prescription, or a 15-day prescription, or 5-day prescription? And when we educate the doctors and the nurses out there, where they can make the suggestion, look, I'm going to give you a 10-day prescription, and here's an alternative for you that you may want to consider, and here's the reasons why. Here's a pamphlet, read it about medical cannabis and its benefits.
At the very least, what we're concerned about is in New Jersey, 5-day prescription is all you get, and that's worse than or lower than 7 in New York, and we are the toughest and all that. But the point is, at some point they go back and say, I need more. Okay, that's
and
not
they're going to get more.
And they're going to get more. But when they need more at some point, in other words, it's like, okay, 30 days didn't do it. At some point before that, it should trigger into, okay, I'm gonna prescribe more, but you have the option now to have cannabis with it as well, and you may find that not only do you not need more, you may need less. That's what happens so often. That to get it in earlier rather than later in this cycle where we learn this is where addiction starts for many people, that for them, less opioids should translate into less addiction. I mean, for the general statistical analysis. And the American Medical Association findings bore that out in the first 13 states before us that allowed it for pain. Everything points to this is going to should be the biggest thing we have in fighting the opioid crisis.
It really is, and if a lot of people get it, it's not just pain management. It's getting off of addiction. People are recognizing that cannabis can be utilized as your off ramp to heroin.
We have a petition approved.
Absolutely, and I know you. Well, hopefully
it was recommended. If it's approved, we'll see.
But we're watching this happen, and it's occurring legally. Yeah. It could occur legally today in New Jersey if you're a medical patient. If you have your own cannabis, you can go through a program that'll help you get off the opioids. We have 2 board members on NewJerseyCannabisAssociation.com, and one of them is a patient, so we have a patient advocate, Rob Cresson, and one of them is a doctor, Dr. Andrew Medvedovsky, who a lot of people know.
And some have as their doctor.
And some has it. So Rob's story is thus. Rob was an elite athlete. He did Ironmans, he did triathlons, he did the Alcatraz Ironman 11 times, which is the hardest on the planet, and he did it 11 times. Whoa. He was sponsored by major brands like Oakley and Nike and so forth. He was a true athlete and a true Ironman. He gets a bad accident, contracts something called complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS. It is devastating his body, today. So he's had this for 7 years. Well, the first group of years, he was on opioids. He was on everything. He was on morphine. He was on these horse pills to take at night. He was on 3,800 milligrams of ibuprofen on top of all of that, just every day, just to deal with his pain. He had liver failure 4 times as a result of that in a 5-year period. And the only reason he knew he had liver failure is when he peed blood, passed out, because he's in so much pain. And the opioids are masking all these issues. He doesn't know that, you and I walk around like, gosh, I had this discomfort. His whole world was discomfort, every moment of every day. So he is now on opioids, and he was addicted, and he meets Dr. Andrew Medvedovsky, and Dr. Medvedovsky takes him off of on a very specific regimen of reducing the opioids and adding cannabis. It took a long time for Rob to get through that program, by the way, which is so offensive.
How long?
I don't know exactly how long, but a couple months. And not overnight. Like you and I could go and fake an injury and get an opioid medication within 24 hours, right? So here's a guy with sincere issues that you can just visually see, and it took him a very long time. He's off the opioids now. He's on 100% for his pain mitigation, medical cannabis, and it's a good news story. He's lost weight. He's much more active. But look, his disease is significant. And here's another issue. He had, I probably shouldn't say on the radio, he had recent issues that he needed medical attention for, and he had those issues addressed at a hospital. But even there, they were pushing the opioids for him to use to mitigate his pain because they wouldn't allow him to use medical cannabis. So he wouldn't take the opioids. He just had to suck it up. I mean, that's one of the things we really got to fix here. I mean, that's part of what we have to address as well, is we shouldn't force these people to use opioids in a hospital because a hospital has a policy that doesn't allow it. That is something we have to address.
What hospital? Call them out.
I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know.
It wasn't Livingston, because Livingston actually gave my friend his oil and kept it in the pharmacy, his hash oil, in the pharmacy. When he needed it, they brought it up to him.
That's excellent.
Yeah. They didn't tell nobody. It was a secret, but they did.
Well, you know what? And again, I don't want to get too deep into somebody else's issue because it's Rob, not mine, and I don't want to do that. But, you know, the reality is I know he had a lot of compassionate folks there who were trying to be as helpful as they possibly could, but they couldn't cross that line. So as a result of that scenario, created a lot of discussion, and hopefully something positive comes out of that.
It will.
Yeah.
Because the compassionate people always win in the end.
No.
We do. It just takes us time.
It takes time, and it does. And it's tenacity. It's compassion and tenacity.
Yes, exactly. They're out there.
Yeah. And, you know, like I said, there's a lot of good news ahead. Again, this November 7th is a very important election. It's going to change the policy in New Jersey one way or the other. We're looking at an expansion of medical. We're looking at decriminalization, no matter who wins. And if Phil Murphy wins, then we're looking at the adult use market, and that's where you really see the expansion. Yeah.
Decrim's going to happen because the 18 to 21-year-olds need protection too. These bills do not protect that little section.
No, and I think, again, conversationally with legislators and other influencers in the state, however we are treating alcohol is how we should treat cannabis when it comes to those who are not of age. It should not be that big of a deal. It should not be certainly a felony the way it is today and things like that. So there needs to be some recognition that if we go the route of legalization, adult use legalization, that we need to respect the fact that there are going to be people just like you and I when we were younger. I'm sure. I'm not saying that you did, but you probably had a beer before you were 21.
Maybe.
And I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'm going to guess that.
I think I was 20.
But
it came first in my.
I used cannabis first.
That was my gateway drug, beer.
Cannabis before tobacco, actually, too.
Is that right?
I smoked tobacco. I'm like, who would smoke tobacco after you could smoke weed? I'm like, weed's so much better. Like,
and healthier.
But you didn't smoke before you had alcohol, did you?
I smoked cannabis before alcohol too. You
are skewing my statistics.
You're ruining it for everybody.
Really? No, but for the majority, you never follow the majority anyway. So
Here's another fun fact. Barack Obama is not president of the United States if he ever got caught. Bill Clinton's not president of the United States if he ever got caught. Yep. Certainly George Bush wouldn't be president of the United States.
You got one? Yeah.
So we have these three pillars. However you feel politically, I'm just saying the three pillars of our elected world. Our past three presidents never would have been president had they ever gotten busted. And so let's treat cannabis for what it is, which is a relatively safe plant that should have some levels of restrictions. Again, it shouldn't be impaired in drive and things like that. And we want to keep it out of the hands of kids unless it's under the care of a doctor. So there's certain things we want to make sure, because the kids have developing brains, and that's why, look at them.
Before you leave, I'm going to take you off subject.
Sure.
That's another issue of mine.
Okay.
And you see the problem here in Trenton, right across the street here, all of these buildings here. One of my issues is wheelchair access for people in wheelchairs.
Right.
If we can fix the problem here in Trenton, we can fix it anywhere. What can we do here in Trenton to fix this issue? There's steps everywhere here in Trenton, going down, going up. Any suggestions? Just picking your brain here.
Yeah, you know, I never had to. I was a local mayor, so I don't really have. We didn't have these issues in my town the way that they are here. These buildings, the way that they're designed, you know, because they're all adjacent. I'm just looking at it now. I mean, there's certain things you could do to provide wheelchair access that is relatively inexpensive, but I think the way that these things look, it's like all of a sudden you're getting to like $100,000, and that presents a challenge. And I don't know I don't have a good solution for it other than everybody should have access. And we know that to be true. So how do you make non-compliant buildings compliant that are that old?
Well,
it's a challenge. It really is. And wheelchair, elevators and things like that too. I mean, we're talking access to multiple floors. Yeah. I'll give you an example of a real-world scenario, and I won't mention names either, but we all know a doctor who is expanding his practices, and he was looking at an option. It was the third floor of a building. It was a beautiful building in a great location, but it's third floor. Well, a lot of his patients are certainly not going to be able to make it to the third floor unless there's an elevator. So he had to find a different location, and it's that type of thing where we need to make sure we have access to as many places as possible. But I don't have a solution for that off the top of my head.
It's never going to be complete.
I think when the buildings come down, new compliance issues come up. But I know a major part of your campaign is public access to public places, right?
Oh yeah, especially that. Yeah.
So like I see that in a major part of your campaign. I follow you on Facebook, so I know that makes sense to me. I should be able to see my senator or assembly member or mayor, or be able to go to a rec center or a library or whatever the public access is. Should be available for everybody. There should be no exception for that.
Right.
Absolutely.
No excuses either.
No excuses.
When Cheryl and I met with...
You should maybe coin that phrase or something.
Like ignorance is no excuse.
Yeah, you should do something like that.
There you go.
I'm never getting rid of that name.
People say that. Cheryl and I met with Senator, then Assemblyman Sam Thompson. We had to go to somebody else's office. He met us in because he didn't have, it wasn't accessible for Cheryl. So it was an arrangement to be made to be somewhere else. And, you know, when we went to White Dog Cafe, Cheryl got carried up the steps in her wheelchair and things like that.
Yeah.
And most people are not going to want to do that, though. You know, she's just like a good sport. It was like a ride. You know?
Legislators, so legislators have a choice on where their offices are, and I think that should
be. They do.
That should be a requirement.
Just like the doctor would not take a third floor office for that reason.
Office of Legislative Services is the ones that fund it, and that what should probably happen is that should be a
They should
rule.
have to approve it.
That should be a rule that there's wheelchair access, handicap access.
You just gave me Office of Legislative Services.
OLS.
They control whether these.
They facilitate how the
payment, the money.
But I think that could be a rule. That's something that could be a rule. I think that maybe that's an angle for you.
That's a great.
And
so when your lease is up, so you're a legislator in district whatever, and your lease is up. If you're not in a handicap compliant location, then you should be able. Then you should.
I know when his light bulb goes on, and it's.
You just got me going.
For $500 an hour, I'm really talented.
Thank you. Helpful.
Yeah. Hey guys, really. Awesome talking to you. I do got to run. Okay.
Good to see you again.
All right.
Thank you so much, man.
One more thing, real quick.
Sure.
What you said about the presidents wouldn't have been elected. God bless her, Cheryl took on Bill Clinton that time when we knew he was coming up 16th Avenue from the tidal basin.
Oh,
It was 20 years ago, almost coming up on the day, actually. And, the good activist that I was even 20 years ago, she had her sign in her wheelchair, medical marijuana for multiple sclerosis. And I made up one with the blank that I carried behind it. I don't inhale it either. I eat it. Right? And when he came up 16th Street, it was obviously no traffic. There's no cars on our side of the road. That's why we were there, right in front of Corker in Art Gallery. And there was 4 limos. When the second one pulled over and slowed down, came up the curb, the others did. You know, they all, and I'm like, it's going to be him. I'll bet that's Clinton in there. And as he came up really slow, I could have reached out and slapped the car. It was so close.
Yeah.
He was laughing and disappearing out of view, came up shaking his head, pointing and waving. I mean, it totally zinged him, you know. She pictures of Cheryl in a wheelchair. And I didn't know how to wave to him. So I went like that. I wanted to be disrespectful, not disrespectful, but not, you know.
Oh, here we go.
So anyway, one day I'm going to take that up with him again because he will remember it. And I'll say, I'm writing the memoirs, and it looked disrespectful laughing. I know why, but you have to tell me why so I can put it in the memoir. You know, anybody's legacy conscious, I got about a 10% chance of a reply. I say. But thanks for coming on again,
Absolutely.
Scott.
Appreciate
this was like totally timely, and we are gearing up and changing over from the elections in a week and a half.
Yeah, it's getting real close, and
that's going to get people.
Hey, and we are having the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association is hosting. Here's something. We're hosting an election night watch party. It's going to be at the Village Poorhouse in Hoboken. So it's not a formal event. It's not something where you have to pay to go there. It's basically like-minded people who are going to be gathered at the same location at the same time watching the election results come in. So that's
awesome.
The evening of November 7th from 7 to 11 p.m. at the Village Poorhouse in Hoboken.
Awesome.
That's that would be a fun place. That would be a fun place to be.
New Jersey Cannabis Business Association.com, or is it
New Jersey Cannabusiness.com. New Jersey spelled out.
That's it. There we go. Thank you, Scott Rudder. Awesome.
Always good to see you, Scott.
Mr. Babb, are you on the phone?
Hello.
Hey, James Babb, how are you doing? This is Lefty. What's going on? You're on the air.
Hey, great. Yeah, I'm on a break at the NJ Weedman trial, and I thought I'd just, call in and give you an update as to what you missed today.
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, they had a couple more exhibits like we had yesterday of like social media posts that Ed had sent out. And then there was cross-examination of this investigator by Ed's lawyer, Mr. Campbell, and it was kind of a little bit awkward. I think he was trying to get to to establish that the date of the court order that banned sharing information about this witness and the date of all of these exhibits that had been previously presented, which were before the date. It was banned. I think that's where he's going, but he kept getting interrupted by objections. It's kind of really hard to follow where he was going. But so it's like I wish I could have raised my hand to ask questions. I had, but
yeah.
Anyway, so I think there's more witnesses for the prosecution coming up next after lunch.
And how did you feel about the detective yesterday? Her testimony. How was that?
Well, yesterday they showed us exhibit after exhibit of social media posts from Ed, and as somebody that I probably watched and liked almost all of those posts when they had come out, because there was so much classic Ed Fortune in there. I mean, but it established clearly that he only wanted to get him into court. He wished no ill harm on the guy, and all the exhibits seemed to confirm that. And so I was surprised. Why is the prosecution confirming that there's been no coercion here? Just, hey, I'm looking forward to seeing you in court. You're going to be embarrassed in court. I'm going to see.
I saw that.
But the problem is the third. He has two charges: a second degree and a third degree. Second degree requires they have to prove there was some kind of threat of force. Third degree does not. It just says that you did something and then somebody doesn't show up for court. Well, that meets this really vague standard. So it's going to be up to the jury to try to figure out, I'm just hoping they don't say, well, technically it's a blank and therefore we're going to just obey the judge's instructions and hurt Ed as a result.
I think he's got the jury on his side. He had 5 jurors laughing yesterday when he said, "I need a bong rip." That was pretty good.
Yeah, and it's really Ed's only tool out here because he doesn't have the resources of a proper legal defense, but he is a genuine guy, and he's connected with juries in the past. And I think he can do it again, but they really need to understand how ridiculous the laws involved are and how they're being just cruelly misapplied in this circumstance.
Why is the jury not allowed to know how much time Ed is facing?
Right, 20 years. Why is it they don't want the jury to know what the penalty is? Can there be any other than one reason? Well, it's harder to get convictions if they know the concept, what's going to happen, right? Because, I guarantee if those people were, had 20 years, there's going to be, the conscience is going to kick in on some of those. And that's why it's banned.
A lot of times,
just another.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, a lot of times you see these jurors. They're after a case is over. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much time he was facing. I made the wrong decision." And it's always after the fact, though.
Right. Well, it's really a terrible position to put a juror in, because they have there's all these consequences, but yet this entire structure is built around keeping them in the dark. I mean, every trial I've observed is the prosecution isn't really trying to make a case as much as it is trying to just limit to a narrow focus anything the jury gets to hear, and block anything that's going to help the defense. Just get it blocked. Doesn't matter how. Get it blocked. Keep them in the dark. This is not the honest pursuit of truth where we're used to seeing in the movies and television when it comes to the justice system. It's like they're not looking for truth. They're looking for a conviction, and they've got practice doing it. So imagine doing that to a juror. We've kept you in the dark for a week. We've made you sit here and not, away from your job and family. And now we've tricked you into convicting a good man. But we needed you to justify our tyranny. So thanks for helping. I mean, it's a terrible thing to do to a jury.
What I saw that was shocking to me, and I think you were shocked by this also, is when the jury left the room, they would run over to Ed real quick and shackle him up with all these chains so he couldn't move. Have you ever seen that before in a case?
I have not, but, I guess this situation is normal, and I was told that this is normal in this circumstance to shackle a man like this, presumed innocent man, fighting for his life against enormous odds. A power imbalance is magnitudes difference between the two. But yet they feel, well, you know what, they know they can't keep the cuffs on him when the jury's there, but they're still willing to put handcuffs on him, like before the jury arrives or when they're out or during breaks, just to what? Just to do this. It's like a weird ritual, a weird dominant, like I'm dominant, you're submissive ritual. It's just horrifying to see men being treated like that by other men. I found that very disturbing.
Yeah, you did mention that yesterday. How it's very authoritarianism. You're sitting in pews like the old school churches. It's very strange.
Yeah, but it's we also just discussed this Stanford prison experiment. And this is basically the Stanford prison experiment just left running indefinitely. These people have their own sort of world of people that they think that they get to abuse just on a daily basis. And they do it, and they don't even think twice about it. And I'm sure they joke about it, with their buddies over beers, or tell their wife about, ooh, I stopped this guy from filming. And yeah, that guy, he wanted to sit on the right, but I made him sit on the left. I don't know what, how these people live with themselves.
Yeah, they were busting Patrick's chops yesterday about filming, and some people went online and actually threatened him, saying, "Oh, you have the shoulder of a juror, and we're going to put you in jail for filming a shoulder of a juror." I never heard such crap.
Whatever.
Yeah, right?
It's like these. It's such a bizarre. It's just such a bizarre world, but all of these, of course, little sideshows to this main, massive, tragedy unfolding before our eyes of this fake excuse for a justice system, and these people walk around with puffed out chests like they're gods, and people need to understand that this is the nature of this thing that they call the justice system. It is so far beyond justice. That it's just horrifying. People really need to see it for themselves. Attend some kind of trial, visit something, hopefully not as a defendant, start to understand what's going on here, and then you can understand why people like us and the other people that are in there supporting Ed and other defendants at other trials we're just so passionate about this, because once you see the horrors that's going on in here, a good person can't sit on the sideline. You got to find some way of opposing this, and or you go insane. At least that's my position. I don't know.
Well, thank you for your support, Mr. Babb. You're awesome, and I always learn something from you.
Likewise.
You'll be there all week. What's your schedule?
Well, today I believe there's no court tomorrow, and I guess we'll hear the schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if it starts again Tuesday. I guess it could be Monday, though.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
So I'll see you then at least.
Yeah, we'll be back to film again next week. So, all right, Mr. Babb.
Right on. Everybody should come down.
We will. We will. Jim, thank you so much. Do you have a website or anything we can promote?
Nah, I got nothing.
All right, well, just go to Weedman's Trial and support the Weedman, Ed Fortune.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Thanks so much.
Again.
Bye-bye.
All right.
There's Jim Babb, great libertarian. He's one of those crazy libertarians. I love him, though. He's great. I'm one of them, too. What's up, Billy?
What's going on? He didn't get up. He didn't rise when the jury walked in the courtroom yesterday. James didn't. And one of the prosecutors was sitting on the prosecution side, was over here like he was disgusted. Like, James doesn't believe in that, this justice system. This isn't justice. He's right.
Yeah.
It's about wins and losses to them. It's not about doing the right thing or finding the right outcome. And it's sad.
Were you there today?
No, not today, but I've been there every other day. I'm going to go there after we wrap up here.
What's your take on this whole thing?
It's bogus, man. I mean, they haven't presented any evidence that supports what they're saying. I mean, the worst thing he did was put the guy's phone number out there because he's trying to find him to serve him.
Not a crime.
To serve him with papers in a lawsuit.
The prosecutor even said, we wouldn't be here. If this is all he did, we wouldn't be here. He
kept
saying we wouldn't be. Well, then why are we here?
Then why are we here?
What
because
are we doing?
It's just another form of harassment, another way to try to shut him up and try to, imprison him. My take is free the weed man. Free him now.
Shocking. All right. We are going to begin to end our show. I want to thank our sponsors, cmmnj.org, sativacross.com,
Good morning.
Good morning, Honeyb. You're on the air.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Honeybee.
Hi.
Sound like you just woke
How's
up.
everyone there?
She's just waking up in her pot field, ladies and gentlemen. What kind of pot field are you in today, Honeybee? Green crack? Sour diesel?
Yes.
all the above. She sleeps in a pot field in
Green
Oregon.
crack.
What a life.
I'm coming.
Ew.
It's a beautiful snow over here.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
Well, today was a good day.
What's going on?
We had some good guests here.
Oh, really?
And we didn't get to interview my friend over here. You got something to say? Grab a mic. Grab a mic. Who are you?
Hey,
and
what's up, Lefty?
Who are you and what are you doing here?
Hey, my name is Ishmael.
What's going on, buddy?
I'm just
good to see you. We haven't seen you in
by.
I haven't seen you in a while. And you're a patient here in New Jersey.
Yes.
You're a cannabis patient.
Yes.
And what was your story? You were on opiates too, I think, for a while.
I
right?
was.
Yeah.
Yes, I was in opiates for a while.
Horrible.
But now I'm just hanging low. I'm smoking and just chilling.
Nice.
Other than that, I draw. I have my business. I do art.
Yeah.
And
what's your business? What are you doing?
I do portraits.
Okay.
Yeah, I do portraits and landscapes.
How do people get in touch with you when they want to?
He's an incredible painter.
Pass off. Yeah,
Oil.
I have my website.
What's your website?
Powerinart.com.
Powerinart.com.
Yes.
Okay. And if we go there, what do we find? We find your artwork up there?
Yes, you find my artwork.
Nice.
How to contact me and everything.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's go check it out. It's hard to host and produce at the same time, so I will try, though.
It's good. You have to go on my Facebook page.
You're talented, though.
I think I've seen some of your stuff. Was it called Power in Art?
Yeah, you have to go into my Facebook page.
Oh, it's on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is it HOU or a POW?
You were in the service? Yeah.
Yes, I was. Yeah, I'm a veteran.
Did you serve over in the war, or were you?
Yeah, I was in Desert Storm.
Desert Storm.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a tough one. Oof.
Yeah.
What did you? So what did you get stuck with when you came home? I know you got all kinds of.
PTSD.
Yeah.
I wasn't injured or anything, but you know.
Well, you have. You showed me on your hands before.
Yeah, it's kind of like dry.
It's dry. What's it called? Desert Storm Syndrome or something?
It's like a Desert Storm Syndrome.
Syndrome, yeah.
It's like you get dry hands.
Yeah.
Skin and I try to take care of them, but it's still they get dry.
What scares me is that they use uranium-tipped bullets over there. Did you have to use uranium bullets over there while you were there? You did. Yeah. Was that make you nervous at all using that? Because I'd be nervous. Yeah.
I mean, it was. We were stuck in the desert for a while.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, so when we went in, it was hell.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my God.
So I'm still having nightmares about it, you know.
I bet.
So and I don't even want to talk about it. That's how.
Gotcha.
Is it? I'm just curious about the. What are they? Not Iranian bullets. Plutonium bullets.
Uranium.
Uranium bullets.
Yeah.
Iranian uranium. Why? What? Were they coming out of the regular?
They have a huge storage of uranium that they need to get rid of, and by putting them in the bullets, they get rid of this stockpile of uranium. And uranium bullets go through tanks better. They go through your body better. They work better.
That's what attracted me right away.
Yes,
what would you use a uranium to build? It's like
They
harder than hard.
But you're going to get all cancer on your fingers for touching them now.
Exactly.
Really?
Exactly.
Did you hear about the new pig bomb? Where they take a stick of dynamite and shove it up a pig's asshole.
Oh, gee. Okay. All right. That's enough.
And they push him out of an airplane flying over.
What? No. All right. That's it. I'm shutting. All right. I'm shutting you down. I got to shut that down, Danny. That does not happen in the United States. They don't do that. That's no.
It's just military talk. Just military talk.
Why, Danny? Why? Oh, I shut the wrong. Oh my God! I shut the wrong mic off. Oh my God! I shut off. Oh my God! You got me so upset. I shut off the wrong mic. I shut off our guest's mic, and I left Danny's on.
That's okay. I'm cool.
Danny, you can't do that. There's children here, Danny. There are children out there. There are people vaping that don't want to hear that. You just made that guy cough his vape out. That horrible comment. No, I'm not. Your mic's off. Your mic is off. No, I turned your mic off. I can't.
ASPCA.
What about? No, Danny, no. Honeybee, where are you?
I'm right here.
All right, Honeybee. Oh, Ken Wolski's here. Ken Wolski.
Hi.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Ken.
I'm just thanking Ken right now. I'm thanking cmmnj.org. And look at Ken in his bow tie. He's rocking the bow tie. Yes. Fancy. He's a fancy guy. Eric's here. Rose is here. Brian's here. Got a lot of people here. It's chilly. Hey, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
What's up, dude?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Honeybee. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. It's cold today.
Oh, is it?
How things going, Lefty?
Good, good. I just got an email from Nathaniel Keith. He says, hello, when is my next court date? I want to come. Is it possible for anyone to speak up? I have a lot of proof of what Ed has helped me out with. Ed Fortune has helped out Nathaniel Keith, apparently. And Ed's helped out a lot of people. And it's a shame what he's going through.
Nice.
How's the trial
Yeah, how
going?
much longer?
Yeah, have you listened to the show?
Yeah.
What show? Yours?
I'm shutting off your mic right now, Eric. I'm sorry. You had your chance. Your mic is off now. Okay. SativaCross.com, CMMNJ.org, New Jersey Weed Band. Okay, your mic's back on.
What, you mean you?
We just spent 3 hours talking about Ed and the court date.
I'm sorry, I missed it. I wish
Yeah.
all right, well, what's a really small minute synopsis?
He's getting screwed by the system.
Yeah. But the trial is ongoing now, right?
It's going. They're on break right now. James Babb is there. James Babb just called in with some great information.
Okay.
He's really good. Patrick Duff called in also. He was good. Scott Rutter was here. And it's a good show. And now we got Honeyb on the line, who just wakes up in a pot field every Thursday for us.
Yes.
Yes. What you
Thank
smoking?
you.
What are you smoking on today, Honeybee? While we're suffering here in New Jersey, what are you smoking on socially in Oregon? Oh, whatever.
Everything.
Oh, whatever. Yeah. Crumble, wax, moon rocks.
Less than 2 weeks till we elect our new governor.
Flowers,
Yay.
medibles.
Medibles.
Medibles made with my magical butter machine.
Hold on, Ken. Did you want to add anything while we're? We got Ken Wolski here, ladies and gentlemen, our CFO or CEO of. No, not the CEO.
Executive Director of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana, New Jersey. Thank you so
501c3.
much. Yeah, we are a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization recognized by the federal government, and we're a public charity in New Jersey too. So donations to CMMNJ are income tax deductible. And
makes you a good person too.
That bow tie is great. His bow tie has pot leaves all over it. I didn't even notice that.
Has marijuana leaves on the bow tie, yes. One of the sheriff's officers today complimented me on my bow tie.
It's beautiful.
Did he really?
Yeah, when I was going into the Weedman's trial.
Anything to report in about that?
Well, the trial's ongoing. It's about in its second day of testimony now. And let's see, they had one witness was examined and cross-examined, and I think they established pretty much that whatever letters Ed Fortune sent were sent prior to the restraining order that was signed by the judge. So, hopefully the jury will see that there really is nothing to these charges. What the jury doesn't know is that Ed Fortune is facing 20 years in prison for witness intimidation, and the state is very serious about pursuing this case against him, and we just hope that justice is going to prevail on this, and that Weedman will have the charges dismissed and be found not guilty.
Why don't they know he's facing 20 years?
Well, because typically the jurors are not told, what the penalty is going to be. That's why John Petito, when he was facing 30 years in prison for growing 17 plants, the jurors never knew that. They were asked to find out, did he grow the plants or did he not grow the plant? Not why did he grow them, or what the penalty is possibly going to be for growing these plants. So.
After John Petito's case, did any jurors apologize afterwards and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know he was facing all this time"? Or no?
I don't remember, but jurors have done that in the past.
They have.
They have, yeah.
In other cases, where they said, "Oh my God, I had no idea that this was what I was sentencing him to.
Yeah.
I had no idea that some of the things that were involved in this case were not allowed to be discussed."
That's when jurors get pissed.
That's when
they
jurors
find
get
that
pissed.
out.
Yeah.
What was withheld.
Like with John Wilson, up in Somerset
They were,
County.
there were some that were not happy with finding out that.
Yeah, right. He was not allowed to tell the jurors, or at least to present a robust defense of the fact that he was growing this marijuana to treat the symptoms of his multiple sclerosis at the very time when New Jersey was considering having multiple sclerosis a qualifying condition for marijuana therapy. He was not allowed to give that information. He had a neurologist signed up to tell him exactly how marijuana was going to help, and the judge would not allow him to
They
present that
wouldn't
information.
even allow him to say he was sick.
Right.
At all.
Right. Yeah.
And at all.
Yeah. The prosecutor said at the time, "What difference does it make if he had multiple sclerosis? If he robbed the bank and had multiple sclerosis, he still robbed the bank." So that was the justification for.
Is robbing banks therapeutic? Because let's all do that. I'm ready. I feel like shit today.
Well, it did get through to the jury a little bit. I'm pretty proud of that sign. It went better than Weedman's thing. When the jury pool was coming in, the metal detector was right inside the door, so they piled up outside the door, and we were the only show in town, and it had a sign that said, "Shh, the jury, they're not supposed to, John can't say he's a medical marijuana patient," and whatever. So everybody that walked in could see the signs, and I believe, in fact, people could hear an argument from the chambers. "He's sick, don't you understand?" It was somebody, a juror got very vehement about it.
There were a number of signs that said marijuana is John Wilson's medicine, just as there were signs that said marijuana is Ed Fortune's medicine.
We had just under 50 people at that trial. At one point, he had quite an effective presence out there.
Right. So anyway, we hope the best for Weedman. The trial's probably going to go into next week, because of the delays. So Lefty, you were filming that, and what happened with the filming?
I got good stuff. They said I couldn't film the jury, which is fine, but they also give us weird restrictions, like I couldn't film the judge or the bailiffs, and they're constantly walking into my shot. So what do? I tried to edit as best I could, but I got the guidelines from the Supreme Court about filming in court, and it doesn't say anything about prosecutors or anything being protected. So they're just making up rules as they go. Just like they chain them up. When the jury leaves, they chain them up.
Yeah, I know.
They don't see that.
I know.
We see that.
And he has to attend sidebars in chains, basically. They're still going on. They're still arguing points of law. And, one of the people arguing is enforced to be in chains.
Oh, wait.
It's terrible.
The jury sees him in chains at that point?
No.
In sidebars?
No. Well, no. After the jury leaves, they still have some sidebars.
They do have sidebars with the jury there.
Right. Yeah, but he's not chained. No, he's not chained.
He's never chained in front of the jury.
Right. Yeah, they chain him up after.
Wow.
Well.
Scary.
Procedure.
So we're getting back to it. Did Laura have anything to add to it? Laura's been a faithful attendant too.
Oh yeah, we spoke about it earlier. Just the same thing. Like I do feel more positive having being the second day of the trial. I feel like he has a really good chance to beat this. Like and we have to remember also, this is just one case of many that he has to fight. He still has cyberbullying. He still has, I don't know, there's a lot, but this is just
drug
one
charge too.
Right, and still the drug charge. So this is just one step to getting to that. But I feel like this, I really do feel like he's going to beat this charge. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, right.
Well, it could be a good way to start with all the rest by beating this. This is the big one, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Penalty-wise.
And I guess, Jim, you talked about the expert panel from the medicinal marijuana program.
Yeah, not as
giving final approval.
In depth as we touched base on it, but we didn't talk about the fact that at the specifics of at 10:35 when they adjourned the meeting, the medical marijuana advisory panel reaffirming their votes for 43 conditions, umbrella. Basically, it was about 7 separate little votes they had. They would reaffirm, and that was just went well. And at 10:35, when they did that, I don't know when the clock starts ticking, but there is that 6-month rule that goes to the Department of Health. This was the last step. There's no other steps. It should have started a 6-month timeline, but as we all know, the Department of Health is somewhat immune to timelines that they're supposed to follow.
Well, they're not immune to them, but sometimes other things come into play and take precedence or extend the timeline. So, I did speak with the head of the medicinal marijuana program yesterday after the vote, and I thanked her for her work and everything, Sue Carson, and she spoke with me, and she said that she's not privy to exactly when the commissioner is going to make her decision, if it's still her, I mean, right now she could, Kathleen Bennett is still around till she's a commissioner until November 7th, and then after that there will be an acting commissioner appointed by Governor Christie. So either one of those people could make that decision and could speed this timeline up.
Kathleen Bennett could say there's stuff in there that could help fight the war against opioids.
Yes, absolutely.
There's stuff there, and I'm going to do that sooner rather than later. I'm glad I'm here long enough to do it. Thank you for getting them to me. She could do that, or she could do nothing. But between now and November 7th, I don't know. Somebody, I think I got to give them a shot somehow.
Well,
I mean, the public should know this. Oh. I love buttonholing Ken when he's got the microphone. He can't pretend I didn't ask. Could you write, this is an op-ed that would get published. And Ken writes fantastic op-eds. Then he kicks it around with Peter and Ed and all. And it's always a really fantastic effort. I'm not probably the guy for the job, but it would be published, and it should be published while she still has the power to do this, as opposed to, I mean, it's more or less congratulating and urging, and here's the significance, and statistically lives would be saved by her doing this now rather than later.
I'm not sure.
Otherwise, I'm going to write one, and I'm not that good.
I'm not sure that an op-ed is going to be the deciding factor in this, but I'll certainly
not a deciding factor, but right now people don't know this. They're not going to know she's resigning. They're not going to know the clock's ticking. This is what we do.
And it really is a compelling argument too that opioid use disorder was approved as a qualifying condition for marijuana therapy in New Jersey, and the expert panel recognizes that people who are addicted to opiates can benefit from marijuana therapy. And marijuana can be an exit drug for these people, and it can help with the withdrawal symptoms, and it can help with the substituting, for other opiates. So
says the expert
there's
panel.
some very, very compelling reasons for moving quickly on this. So thank you, Jim. I'll work on that.
Yeah, well, at least if we just float around, one of us, whether it be you, me, Ed, Peter, somebody could write up a template for one and say, okay, because as soon as somebody says, here, what about this, then we all jump on, usually, like, oh, no, don't say it that way, say it this way, and the process takes over.
Sue Livio was there. I saw her from the Star-Ledger.
I thought I saw her there.
Yeah, but I haven't seen a report yet. But I haven't really been online too much.
I gave a quick look, but not, that was yesterday, last night. I didn't look today. Yeah.
But I'm anxious to get back to the trial. I'm here with Karen from Florida. So came up to support Ed Weedman all the way from Florida.
Really?
Nice. Hi, Karen.
Port St.
Thanks, Karen.
So anyway, thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And
thank you, Ken.
Carry on.
Great report.
And isn't this something you get to just sort of come on, now you're going all the way back a couple blocks that way.
Yeah.
Really, it's a...
Say hi to James Babb. He's there.
Oh, yeah, Jim Babb.
He's great.
Yeah, he is. He's yes, I invited him on to CMM and JTV. I think we did a Skype conference with him once before.
Did.
But,
should get him in.
He's got a lot to say about jury nullification, about the education of jurors, and, about the unfairness of the criminal justice system in America today. So, he's a very articulate gentleman, and I hope to hear more from Jim Babb. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken Wolski.
Ken Wolski.
From cmmnj.org. It's the reason why you can all smoke weed out here. All right, it's starting to rain, so we're going to finish this up here. Magicalbutter.com, Happy Daddy Products, NewJerseyWeedman.com, DavidVersusAutism.org, Blue Planet Biotech, Run New Jersey, Medical-Freedom.com. CannaSense, who just got in trouble, they were giving out cannabis cards from California to people outside of California. Totally legal. But somebody got busted, so we're trying to get a story on that. New Jersey Grannies for Grass, Tuffy's Fight, Legalized for Lorelei. JacksonStorms.com, Prayers for Sarah, Prayers for Pete, Jenny's Purple Ribbon Journey, Jenna's Journey, Women's Veterans Collective, and Weed for Warriors, Weed for Warriors Project. And as we start our list, the rain comes down. And we're not going to rush the list, so deal with it. Deal with the cold rain, because
Well, it's good.
It's just supposed to be a short storm, according to the map, so we should be all right.
We want you to feel like crap inside and out today.
Well, we have our help wrapping up, so when we get to it, we'll get to it.
What's that? Honeybee?
I was going to say, at least you're alive. At least you're alive to feel the rain.
At least we're alive.
The list of people aren't even here.
Yeah.
That's true, Honeybee. Like Cheryl Miller, the reason why Jim is still here is because of Cheryl Miller. He's still fighting.
Yeah.
Jim ain't going to give up. Because Cheryl never gave up. So why should Jim give up? Why should we give up? Cheryl gave up, and she didn't give up, and she fought from a bed with her head, with nothing else but her head.
Yeah, if you're going to give up, you better bring in 100 people to take your place before you go, or otherwise you can't go. You know, or if you have a purpose to serve. It's like being drafted and sentenced or whatever.
If there's anything to give up, it's marijuana prohibition.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we need to give up, this whole country.
Yeah, come with a better reason. If Cheryl Miller can show up with muscular sclerosis in a bed, just moving her head, you better have a better excuse for that why you're not showing up.
Yeah. A lot of 20 years ago stuff going on, so it's been that long, you know. The end of October, we were about ready to go to Washington for Cheryl's first trip to D.C., where we confronted Bill Clinton as he rode by and made him laugh harder than I've ever seen Bill Clinton laugh before.
Are you kidding?
No,
What Bill Clinton when he was president?
well, yeah, the short version is, because I'll give the short story each time. We were there with other people, part of a group, and we got separated from the herd, and I thought, well, let's just go over to the White House and take a look, you know, because we're sightseers. And police officer said we weren't allowed there. I thought it was because of our medical marijuana for multiple sclerosis sign taped to Cheryl's legs, you know, the knees to the feet. And he said it wasn't that. It wasn't that. That the president was coming back from wherever he was in a motorcade up 16th Avenue from the tidal basin. And once he told me that, we walked away down towards where he was coming, set up on the side of the road where there's no parking, there's no cars, traffic's already stopped. We're waiting for the little motorcade coming back, and I pulled out a blank sign from behind that and wrote on it, "I don't inhale it either, I eat it," because that's what he said, you know. I tried it once, I didn't like it, I didn't inhale it, and I never did it again. So I did that, and I held it over Cheryl's head, and sure enough comes a bunch of motorcycles with their lights on this deserted 5-lane wide road. And as they come up, there's 4 limousines. The second one pulls right over to the curbside. I mean, is about 4 feet from the curb tops, and we are on the curb. You know, there's no cars there. So they slow down too, and it was slowing down, and I can see for maybe 10, 12 seconds it was going so slow. There's Bill Clinton in the back seat by himself, 2 guys in the front seat, and he's pointing and waving, and then hands up over his head, out of sight, laughing, back up like he was doing the wave. You know how people do that? It looked like that as he goes by. Because we zinged him. So what happened is I didn't know, do I not wave? Do I wave? Do I not? This is the president. So I wanted to wave, but I didn't want it to look like dignified, so I went like this. I went like toodaloo or something, you know, to the president of the United States while he is going by. Yeah. And so now what I'm going to do 20 years later is I've got a copy of my memoirs. I've written this up, this part, but that it pertains to him. I want to be fair and take it to his Harlem office. He's got an office in Harlem still. And say, I just wanted him to review this before this goes to print, because if it's unfair or untrue, I'd like to be advised. So the way it looks, okay, it might be a special copy of my memoir that kind of makes it look like he was being disrespectful, laughing that hard. There she is sitting in a wheelchair, little dog on her lap, her little doggy on her lap, and he's laughing so hard that, you know, all I want him to do is say, "No, you really zinged me good. It was just, it caught me by surprise. I didn't mean any disrespect. Thank you, sir." And then I can put that into the memoir, and that sucker will take off, man. Got a comment by the president, you know. People will start reading that crap then, you know.
Oh, man.
And I'll get it into a women's magazine and make $800 to $1,200. That's it.
That's never going to be it.
No, it isn't.
I love the Cheryl Miller stories.
Yeah, great story.
Because they're always good.
I tend to try to find one that's almost most are to the humorous side to a little bit counteract. Here we go, because.
Why? What's the matter? I'm just going to talk about a dead baby named Sabina Rose next. What's the matter with that? What's wrong with a dead baby?
Yeah.
What's wrong with a 15-month-old baby that died waiting for her cannabis? Something wrong with that?
On December 2nd, 2012, by the way.
Is something not wrong with that?
Yeah.
That's the real question.
You ever think of that, though? I mean, we think of Sabina Rose as a 15-month-old baby. It's coming up to, she would have been 5 years old on December 2nd. Would have been her 5th birthday.
Wow.
You got to realize to get the full effect,
Diane Ripatella, Gracie, Cindy Mae, Marie, Little Jack, Joan Ford is William's mom. She wrote a book about epilepsy, about her struggles in the 40s and 50s. Brandy Robertson.
How is William?
William is doing better. I spoke to him a few days ago. We need to get him up here for Thanksgiving.
You got to work on that.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
He before his stroke, I'm telling you, out of our first 80 podcasts, he probably didn't miss 6 or 7.
No, he was always here. So it's a shame that he's sick now.
Well, he needs a car.
Well, and cannabis is helping him, believe it or not. It's really helping him a lot with his stroke, recovering. He's able to lift his arms up above his head now. Yeah, which he couldn't do for years.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Good news.
Bill Buckman, my attorney, Jesse's attorney. Chad had brain cancer. And when Chad was diagnosed, his father killed himself, leaving Iris to take care of Chad all by herself. And he didn't have enough medicine. He didn't have enough time. Not enough support from our government. Jeremy was a victim of the drug war. He was growing beautiful cannabis plants, and the government came in and took his life away. They took his family away. They put him in jail, put him in drug court. Ruined his life, ruined his family's life. Colette is Jeff's mom. She died from MS. Matt, Troy, from pancreatic cancer. Russ Perry. Next week we're going to make a phone call, because we're going to call again off the air one more time, and then we're going to call Senator Cruz Perez to find out about Roger Barber's daughter, because Roger Barber's on our list because he's dead. His daughter is still alive, and we can still help her.
We get her back into the Lark school. She's not in school anymore because her mom, Laura, could not continue to make the daily trip there to give her a sip of liquid because the nurse can't.
She's a single mom. She can't. How could she do that?
And the nurse is not allowed until a bill that's been authored and sponsored by Senator Cruz Perez languishes in committee. Somebody needs to stick up for it. She's already lost the right to what her best education possible under the circumstances this year. It's as if they've just forgotten about her, and that is unacceptable. So let's call them on air.
Let's call. I'm ready.
One more time between now and then,
and
let them know we are going to call you on air, and it's being discussed.
It's time.
And Laura would like a meeting, and she would.
So Roger Barber, Jay Oleto, Ella Bagelman, brain cancer. Hattie Koshel. And Honeybee, I'm sorry.
I know what that means.
Past that ties it all together at the end, I guess, would be the best, and you get to say a word about him for reasons you will explain.
Wow. It doesn't ever get easy. Oh, my goodness.
Really sorry that it's as hard as it is for you to express and me and others to express personal loss as it applies to what we're doing. It does underscore the life and death nature and the ramifications for those left behind. So we love you for going through this every week, because a mother missing a son is probably the hardest thing that happens to any human being. So the list is not complete until you complete it.
So we all need to help everyone. Give that 10% tithe to others. You need to make a difference.
We will.
And that's what we're doing each week.
We do, and we will. Honeybee, did you say Michael Dillon's name? I'll say it if you didn't.
Michael Dillon,
Yeah.
Thomas. I miss him. Miss his laugh. I miss the way he just loved everyone and wanted to make everyone happy, and just a ray of sunshine wherever he went. All right, here I go. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Yeah, we will.
We